Afternoon and welcome to our August 25th Finance Committee meeting. Thank you for everyone that showed up today. Mr. Patrick, would you like to open us up?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. First, before we get going, you'll notice we have two new faces up here with us. As you know, we've got our interim finance director, Reed Lanham, and from the budget office, Michelle White, who will help us with our agenda today. Fairly busy agenda. We've got a number of grants, and we've got some informational items on the final state budget and how it affects our Lynchburg City Schools. So we'll go ahead and get started. First on the agenda, we have today Chief Brad Creasy, who will talk to you about a Rescue Squad Assistance Fund grant that the fire department has received.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee.
Hello.
So this, as Mr. Patrick said, this is a Rescue Squad Assistance grant that is issued by the Office of EMS for the total of $53,506. It's a 50-50 matching grant, which leaves us as a department responsible for $26,683.50. This grant would allow us to replace our Stryker stair chairs. 2 of them would be automatic, and I think we've got slated 4 that would be manual. And we do have this matching amount in our operational budget. We have budgeted for that. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Just for clarification for me, the difference between the chairs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me ask our interim EMS battalion chief, but I'd say 2 are motorized and the rest are manual. But
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Yes, ma'am. So to answer your question appropriately, the 2 are battery powered and the others are manual. A majority of our fleet have manual stair chairs now. With the amount of responses that we go to involving stadium seating, sporting events, etc., the battery powered chairs will literally take a patient up or down and reduce the risk to our providers of injury exponentially. So it really, truly does it for you. It's an amazing piece of equipment.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
So, which I'm clear. Does it say like it's a stretcher, but it's like a chair?
Yes, sir. It's a chair that we use to go up and down steps to get patients out of the residence or their location to the stretcher where they would then be properly secured and loaded into the ambulance.
I need to look up on this. Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Come on by, we'll show you one.
Yeah, okay.
We'll give you a ride.
Okay. I was about to need a ride.
Yes, sir.
be glad to demonstrate.
I want to jinx myself. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, great. Well, that sounds like a wonderful grant, and I'm glad you already have the money to match it. So,
And this does take committee action.
oh, we need. Okay, do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second? Or, oh. Okay, Councilman Foley. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Did you say aye? Any opposed? Okay, it passes.
Thank you.
Great, thank
Thank
you.
y'all so much. Have a good afternoon.
You too.
Next, we have the fiscal year 2025 Edward Byrne JAG Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program. And our police chief, Ken Edwards.
Hello, Chief.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of council. The Lynchburg Police Department has been awarded funding through the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant. The JAG grant allows for computer purchases for the Lynchburg Sheriff's Office, totaling $4,631. The Lynchburg Office of the Commonwealth Attorney, totaling $2,890. And the Lynchburg Police Department, totaling $27,681. So there's no local match required to accept the awarded amount of $35,202. And just for background on this is a grant that our finance manager applies for annually. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Questions? Just regular like computers for normal type of operations?
Yes, it would be for regular work within the police department as well as replacement as well.
Great. Cool. Do I need to make a motion? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Smile is an aye. Any noes? Okay, it passes.
Thank you.
Chief.
Thank you.
Next, we have Preston Sellers. The state has provided for one-time funds for bonuses for human services staff. It does require full council action. Preston's here to speak to you about that.
All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mayor, members of the Finance Committee. I'm here today to request approval of an ordinance to authorize payment of a 2% bonus for full-time social services staff. The governor's FY27 budget provides a one-time bonus for eligible full-time employees equal to 2% of their base salary as of June the 1st, 2026. And per Code of Virginia, a local ordinance regarding payment of the bonuses must be in place. The total cost of the bonus is approximately $160,427. Now, while personnel costs normally require 15.5% local match, the department has sufficient existing funds to cover the city's required share. Therefore, payment for the bonus has no impact on the city's general fund. Staff requests approval of the ordinance authorizing payment of this bonus for eligible employees, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Great. Any questions?
Nothing to know.
Okay. Any questions? Well, sorry, no? Okay. Well, I think this is wonderful because
Sir.
they get a bonus and you already have the funds for it. So
Yes, ma'am.
no one has to mess with anything. It's a win-win. Do I need a motion?
Yes. So moved.
Second. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No. Okay.
Aye.
Passed. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Congratulations to all your employees.
And finally, for our last two grants, we have our Parks and Recreation Director, Wyatt Woody.
Afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The first grant is an award grant from AARP to Parks and Recreation totaling $15,000. It's for an upgrade and improvements to our gardens at the Templeton Center. It'll provide a new concrete slab, improve accessibility around the raised beds, ergonomic tools, additional raised bed, more seeds for our seed bank, a new tool shed, garden hose, and sun protection shades for our plants. There is no match needed for this grant, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
Is this a grant you normally apply for, or is it something new?
This is a new one this year.
Okay. I just want to commend the staff for always finding other resources, whether it's police, whether it's fire, and our Parks and Rec. I just want to commend the staff for looking for other resources to bring into our community. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? No? What was the total of the grant?
$15,000.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any noes? No. All right. Great. We'll pass this here.
Excellent.
Thank you.
And our next one was awarded a National Endowment of the Arts grant. It also is $15,000. This offers for 3 new workshops with well-known artists around the area, plus partnering with the Cub Creek Foundation Pottery Studio in Appomattox. This will be used for firing up their kilns, but this grant will allow us to bring in folks that we can't typically bring in. There is a 50-50 match with this, but we're able to fulfill this match through the ongoing regular cost of the Jackson Heights Art Studio. So no additional finances will be needed. Again, be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right. Thank you. Any questions?
No.
Questions? Oh, this is great. Good job. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Smile. Yes. Okay. No nays.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That wraps up general business. The next item should be an informational item here, the final state budget and LCS funding overview. I'm going to turn it over to Michelle White in just a moment to go through some information. But Chairman Reed,
Sorry, I know I'm interrupting you. I don't think general reserve for contingencies update and the monthly revenues would take too much time, and that actually might inform us a little bit about this next one. Is that possible? Do we mind if we do those two first?
That's fine.
yeah, I think that works.
That'd be
perfectly.
awesome. Thank you.
So we'll move that to the end, and we'll go over to Michelle White, who will walk us through our general fund reserve for contingencies update, and then monthly revenues.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Well, it will be very short and sweet because we're starting out our new fiscal year. We did have, so normally that would start at $1.2 million. Council did in early July appropriate $310,000 from the fire assessment, the study that was done. So that is coming off of here. You'll see that under appropriations. So we have about $889,000 left as our balance, $839 on it's kind of the council's money, and $50,000 that you all set aside for the manager to use. And just to go back to last year as the 2026 where we finished up, about $653,000 of the reserve was used. So we had $546,000 left as we ended the year there.
And keep in mind that 310,000 is an up to amount, and we'll only spend what we actually need. And we're into the fiscal year a little bit, so obviously it's not going to be a full year's cost. So just wanted to remind council of that.
It's true. It's $100,000 for the assessment, and then the balance of that was for the two positions. So we'll move into the monthly revenues. And it is sort of because we're going back and forth here, and because we do have a delay, and when we find out how much we collect in revenues, we are through the month of May, so we don't have final year numbers here for 2026. But looking at sales tax, all of these look pretty good, that we're going to come in about where we need to be. So you'll see the actual to adopted for sales tax is about $870,000 ahead. Looking at the actual number, we need about $1.1 million in June for us to make our adopted figure. We usually have closer to $2 million, so hopefully we should be fine there. Consumer utility tax electric, we need $150,000 to finish out the year. That's a normal too. That's like you see in May, we had $260,000. We're usually in pretty good shape there. Going on to meals tax. We've collected right now $19.9 million, and we need about $1.4 million to get us to the 21.3 that's adopted. We should be in good shape. Lodging tax, same thing. We're at $3,700,000 close to $750,000. We need about $350,000 to meet that $4.1 million adopted figure for lodging tax. And amusement is the great one that we have already collected more than what we adopted. So everything we get in June is a bonus there. So nothing's super surpassing what we adopted, but I think we're on track to finish out, at least not below. So, any questions? Okay, all right.
And let's go ahead and do the record of votes.
Sure.
So we clear the decks and have the rest of the time to talk about the state budget.
Okay. All right.
And ultimately, you have at the end a record of votes. Obviously, doesn't need to be voted on, but wanted to make sure it is in your agenda there.
Yep, thank you.
So with that, we'll go back to the schools conversation. As you know, Chairman Reed asked ahead of this meeting to have a conversation around the state budget actions at the end of the year, and particularly the impact on schools. Asked a couple of specific questions to the schools administration. We've got those answers. We'll review them with you. In going through this, I think what we've discovered is at this point, there are as many questions as there are answers going forward. I know we have planned a joint school board meeting for September 8th. And I think should the committee have specific questions for the superintendent ahead of that meeting, we can kind of formulate those questions here and get them off ahead of time. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle. She's going to walk you through quite a bit of information, really good data, and we'll have a question and we'll have a Q&A to follow. So over to Michelle.
All right. Thank you. All right. Madam Chair, Mayor Taylor, Councilmember Quality, Councilmember Wilder, I have a presentation here with some more information for you all on the final state budget and schools funding. So we'll get started with a little budget recap to throw it back to remember that in early June, City Council adopted our fiscal year 2027 budget. And that budget included $44.2 million for the schools operating the local contribution. That amount is about $2.1 million over fiscal year 2026. Those are in recurring funds, $2.1 million in recurring. And that was really to support a 2.5% increase for all city schools employees, which aligned with the 2.5% increase that you all adopted for city staff. In addition to that, there was another $661,000 identified in one-time funding that we were able to put towards some of their operating costs. So that was early June. fast forward to late June, and the state finally adopted their budget and surprised us all with a 4% increase for schools, where we had been looking at I think it was the House that had like a 2% increase, and what the schools had looked at was a 2% increase back in December. So that put everybody in a little bit of a scramble, and prompted the questions from Chair Reed. And so up here, we have the questions that were asked, and we sent those to the schools. Their responses are what you see up here in bold type. So just going through those, how much additional local funding would be needed to support the increase from 2 to 4? That's $1.7 million. How much did the school division save in VRS? We knew on our side that our VRS rate change, the city had about a $3.1 million savings. So the schools let us know that their savings was $1.75 million. They're saying that the majority of that savings was redistributed to cover increased premiums in healthcare. The last question was, how are our neighboring school divisions and how are other cities and localities handling this issue? According to the school sources, they said that school divisions are requesting the gap in funding from their governing bodies. We put together a chart here, kind of looking around at what's happening around us. And you'll see Amherst, Bedford, and Campbell, they all accepted the 4% increase that the state provided. It says here they didn't need to ask for any additional money from their locality. I will note that Amherst schools did go back to their Board of Supervisors and request some funding. The Board of Supervisors at that time said it was a little too early in their fiscal year. They weren't ready to do an additional appropriation. So I did see recently Amherst School Board went back and reworked their numbers, and they're able to accept the state's 4% without needing additional funding from the board out there. Also on here, you'll see Charlottesville. Their numbers are a bit higher. They're dealing with collective bargaining. So that's a different situation, and also different situation for Roanoke City and Roanoke County because they have funding formulas in place. So their contributions are kind of set through that. The one that is different with Danville City schools did go back to the city and ask for additional funding from that council, and that council approved those funds. We have seen that our schools are accepting the 4% from the state, but they are just with plans to kind of monitor their budget as they move forward through the year. So where that kind of leaves us, just to reiterate, the full cost of the 1% increase for all city schools staff is $853,000. The state portion of that is right over $400,000, which leaves the balance of it to come back. That the local portion is about $452,000. If you multiplying that out by the 4%, the state portion there is $1.6 million, and the local portion is $1.8. As a reminder, the city did $2.1 million in recurring funds with the fiscal year 2027 adopted budget. So beyond the compensation increase that the state did with their final budget, they did some additional funds as well, which was it's great to see that not only there in the middle in the yellow highlight shows the compensation adjustment of $800,000 that's going from the 2 to the 4, but they also got about another $1.2 million in funding for other needs. So we'll say that the last minute budget decisions by the state really highlighted that there's been a variety of changes that have affected city schools since Dr. Majette submitted her requested budget to the school board, which happened in early January. So we kind of peel the onion and look at all the different movements that occurred. So there was the school budget request was finalized and presented to the school board for approval before VRS shared their new biennial rates, and that was what they told us that was a savings of $1.75 million for them. And then thinking also on our side, on the city side, that the proposed budget was $2.4 million less than what the school board requested. And then, but through budget discussions and between proposed and adopted, council found the additional $661,000 in one-time funding to offset some of their operating costs. There was also $200,000, and which isn't significant, not a lot, but also not insignificant, that they found that there was school nutrition equipment upgrades was listed in the operating budget and the CIP, so duplicated there. We were able to remove that from the operating side because it stayed in the CIP. So here you'll see, this is a table just to kind of put all that information together, where you can see where the school submitted budget started out at just under $128 million. Through the different movements, the updated total for revenues goes to about $128.2 million. An updated total on the expenditure side is 127.7. So the difference, based on the submitted budget, is just over $500,000 to the good there. If you think about what happened since the adopted budget, it's about a $2 million difference. So if we ended there, we'd be pretty good, but always wait, there's more, and it's not great here, unfortunately.
Can we go back to that slide one time? I just want to reiterate. So what this is telling you is basically relative to the amount of money that they would need to fulfill their entire request, not what was adopted, but what was initially requested. Based on all these ins and outs, they're actually $500,000 better off than what they actually requested, based on the information that we shared thus far. So I just want to be clear what that meant. So that they're in really good shape relative to these numbers, but as Michelle said, peeling the onion.
Yes.
So we'll go a little bit further.
Unfortunately, there are another layer to think about, and that is a large concern they have right now. Is the health insurance uncertainty? They're experiencing some high claims. They've been told that those claims might be ongoing for years to come. This is affecting the conversation they're having with Anthem right now on their renewal rates and what that should be. So with the increased costs, they're even discussing things like a funding strategy that might be something along the lines of doing an upfront cost of $2 million a month. So that would be $24 million for the year. Right now, schools are budgeting $20 million. Their consultant is also suggesting, encouraging them to consider using the same network provider as what the city did. I don't know if you remember, but last year, the city, we switched network providers in order to mitigate some of the cost increase. The schools opted not to do that at that time, but it's sort of back in the mix for them to talk about this year. And then there is a health insurance reserve, which currently has just under $2.2 million. And schools is talking about they may need to come back to city council and ask for some of those funds to be appropriated.
So you go back, Starlet. So interesting on a couple of these, when the city switched networks from Key Care to Health Keepers, we were able to retain about 99% of our physicians and ended up saving a little bit more than $500,000 a year. Relatively similar savings would be expected from schools. And that second bullet up there, I think, is really important in that we're self-insured. So every month we pay the bill we get from Anthem, who manages all of our claims for us. Those costs fluctuate up and down on a monthly basis based on the actual claims history, but we budget for an entire year. My understanding is schools, especially the board, maybe more than the administration, is very uncomfortable with that fluctuation on a monthly basis. So they went back to Anthem and said, we want to know exactly what we're paying each month. And they've gone back and forth with Anthem on this. They want Anthem to set a flat rate for them to pay. The difficulty there, in Anthem's eyes, is if things don't go well, Anthem is acting as a bank, essentially, right? They're lending throughout the year those healthcare costs with the true up coming in the end. Anthem doesn't want to be there. No health insurance, no claims manager really wants to be there. So what Anthem has offered is to do that, but at a rate that's probably significantly higher than what the actual claims expectations would be. So while Anthem has offered, my understanding is schools wanted to propose to Anthem that they pay $22 million a year. they budget $22 million a year in flat increments. Anthem initially came back and requested 26. They've settled at 24. But if you looked at the actual kind of claims projections, which is typically what we would budget on, those projections would probably be closer to that 22 million. So there is a built-in premium that they are paying to do this flat monthly rate that's going to have budgetary impacts, if that makes sense. All right. Sorry to interrupt.
Nope. It would, coming back to us at that will, if there's a balance in the end, that would, Anthem would return that. So, all right. And I think, so then here's the I don't know if it's the final layer, but timing and where we are right now, because truly the school board has not made a formal request at this point for any additional funding. And I think some of that is really that we're here at the end, our fiscal year 2026 is still wrapping up for them, wrapping up for us. We're still doing year-end entries. And so we don't have any information yet on final balances, where we'll finish or where they will finish. And ideally, if the schools is ending the year with a surplus, then that's a place that they could tap to help them with the health insurance deficit. So they would not have to look at the reserve for that. And then when we talk about year end, we're also talking about the beginning of the year as well. So for us, fiscal year 2027, we're under 60 days into this year. Schools have been in the classroom for 1 week. I hear they're still working through contracts, so they don't have their staffing kind of settled out yet either. So really not enough time has passed in this fiscal year for us to develop a clear picture of what's going on. And if we can, wait with a little more time, we'll have a more informed outlook of where we are, and that we'll have that later in the year. So looking ahead, we can work with LCS to try to clarify the impacts of the final state budget and how that leaves them, what situation that leaves them on everything that they're looking at. There are quarterly reports. You all know that we bring quarterly reports to the Finance Committee, so we'll be bringing that here and reporting how things are moving along for us. And with that, probably later towards the end of this year and early 2027 would be a better time for us to evaluate the position of the city and school budgets. And that is really it. So I'll turn it over if you all have any questions. Unless we have.
Sure, we all do.
Okay.
Just to kind of get clarity, do we still have our monthly meetings with the superintendent, the chair, and the manager, and the city manager, and the team? So, have they mentioned anything in those meetings as far as the kind of request?
We've not had a meeting we've not had that meeting since the final state budget was adopted.
Is there a time period? I think we're going to revisit it later and see how things go. Is there a time period that they need? Is it for the current financing? Is it for the current salary amount for the staff now?
So they've accepted that 4%. So their staff is getting that raise right now. So it's not contingent on anything at this point.
They are getting it now.
Yes.
But as far as how to replace it or to make the balance whole, is it what the kind of question might be?
Yeah, well, right now, if you set the health insurance concerns aside, they're in really good shape based on some of the changes since they proposed their budget and the state adopted its budget. I think the questions right now really revolve around where they land with healthcare and what that means for what they mean, what their financial position looks like. And I think, candidly, neither of us will have a really good picture until we get a little bit further into this budget year, late December or December, January timeframe. If there are issues or difficulties at that, we're projecting issues or difficulties, that's probably the time to revisit some of these conversations.
Thank you.
And we have a joint meeting on the 8th.
September 8th.
September 8th. So they'll bring a lot of their petitions forward then.
And again, if there's specific questions that you guys have for schools, we can submit those from the committee chair ahead of that meeting.
You say do the $1.2 million additional above they did the compensation and the final state budget had additional $1.2 million and I hear them talk about buckets. So I think schools is still trying to figure out how they can spread that money to use most effectively with their operations. But that might be another place where there's some movement that is happening for them.
Thank you.
Thank you. You start scrolling back. I don't know which one it was, so I'm sorry. Not far away. Maybe the one before. Right here, I think. The adopted budget included. Maybe the one prior. Forgive me. I'm forgetting which slide it was. There was a comment made of the reason, maybe it was here, about how they have the $2 million and the savings they've had. Can you say that again, just so I'm tracking?
So the December, I think maybe going back to the city schools submitted their budget using that December 2025 column.
Right.
That's where they thought the state funding would be. At the end of in June, when they actually did finalize their budget, what you see in that first column under June 2026 is what the state is going to provide. So that's the $2 million additional funding coming to city schools from the state.
And there was a comment made about the additional savings items. That's what I'm trying to remember, and I'm sorry.
Versus the VRS savings, and
I got the VRS savings down.
So there's VRS savings, and then you all did give them another $660,000 for one-time funding that was identified in their operating budget. So being able to use one-time funds to cover the $660,000 helps offset some of their cost.
And then the only other one is originally they budgeted $200,000 for nutritional equipment in both their operating budget and their capital budget. So that ended up being a wash. Is any of that?
I guess where I'm coming from is I would love to know. I watched that meeting. I went back and watched the school board meeting, anticipating this conversation, and I'm very interested in finding a solution for this. And my hope is that that the school board does come forward with what they'll be doing to make the adjustments on their end, and not just ask for the whole pie. I think there are things they can do to help offset this, and it's another reason why I asked for the quarterly numbers, monthly revenue collections update ahead of this to show like we're not even into May for last year's budget, and I don't even know what this year's budget is looking like officially yet too. So that was kind of where I was going. I don't remember the exact comment that was made that really perked my ears up, but that's at least one council member's approach of what this conversation should warrant, is understanding what they're doing on their end as well to do this. And then just a bit of a tangent, the slide that had the other localities and what they're doing. If I'm reading this correctly, absent Danville, of this slate of localities, no other local school division needed extra funds to cover the increase. Is that correct?
Correct.
I mean, that's telling. So we would be an outlier in that case, and I think that would raise a significant flag of how things are perceived, budgeted, financed, and so on and so forth of what's going on up the hill. I'm not trying to say anything's going wrong per se, but that's telling. That's what I'm trying to say. And selfless plug as to the comment about Charlottesville collective bargaining. I think that continues to articulate my point on that front. In any event,
Danville's unique as well in that they have
the casino,
a giant big bag of cash in the form of the casino.
It was like giving them a nickel or something.
Yeah.
Having to do that. And I mean, I will say that this was kind of watching some of their school board meetings, kind of a moment in time. So fast forward, if anything, kind of outside of that, there could be something that happened in a meeting that I was not watching that happened. But this was.
No one has watched more school board meetings in the state, Michelle.
In any event, would love to see us try to figure a solution here when we have the information to make a call. Thanks.
So just to restate, just for clarification, according to what I'm understanding, is they actually have the money. I mean, like if you take the healthcare, the $2 million for healthcare that they may come to us and ask out of contingency fund for, because of the difference that the state made up, they actually have the money to meet the 4% without coming to us. Is that what I saw?
So maybe with a couple of caveats. So if you set healthcare aside, right, there's always caveats. If you set the healthcare aside, it certainly looks that way. One of the things we don't understand is with the additional money that came from the state, because the headline from the state is we go from 2% to a 4%.
Right.
But when you look at the reality, not only did we get the money for that 2% jump from the state, we got another $1.2 million, right? So that's really, really helpful. We don't quite know yet if that 1.2 can be fungible across where they need it, or if it's for specific programs. So I think that's one area where they need to provide some clarity to us. But if that money were fungible, and they could use it pretty much as they saw fit, or they could use it to supplant other fungible money that was dedicated to specific programs, then they're in pretty good shape. They're actually, $500,000 better off than they would have been had we funded their full request, and none of these changes had happened subsequent to that.
So I think it is a blend of that. There are some things that they have to be used for specific things,
Right.
and then there's a couple of line items that are a little more or less restricted. So it's just how they are able to. I think I heard Bedford County say, it's in buckets, but we're able to move those buckets around so that we can take what we have, the local funding we have, and make it work.
Okay.
So it's possible.
Yeah.
So really, just like you keep saying, more conversation and more time is needed before we can really see what that's going to look like. And just
Because schools did they're finding out in June that this
Yeah.
extra money. So that's
right.
really fast to try and put that together.
Any other questions,
I would just say good indications.
sir? No. Okay. Well, thank you for all that information. That is very helpful, and I think that helps us go into the joint meeting with good questions to ask too, to help.
If you
direct
do
that
have any specific questions for schools ahead of that, I'd encourage you to coordinate that with Chairman Reed, and then if you could get that to us, we can send them out.
Okay. Very good. Roll call.
No items.
No. No. Mayor. Roll call. No. Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
To everybody.
Good to be back.
Hope you had a nice summer. It's good to see all of your smiling faces and our new positions people are holding, and the two of y'all together. This is great. So that's all I have. Just good to see y'all. And then our next Finance Committee meeting is Tuesday, September 22nd, 3 p.m. So we will see you then. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Praise the Lord. Good evening. Welcome to our first meeting, I guess beginning of fall meeting, August 25th, 2026. Turn it over to Mr. Greg Patrick.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. Welcome back from your 6-week vacation. We have a very, very busy agenda today for your work session. First, we have a number of business item briefings, which of course are those items that precede a vote of council. We'll review these items with you and they will come back to you for a vote at your next council meeting. Then we have a number of work session items. First, council requested a speed study on Leesville Road. We have our consulting firm that conducted that speed study with us today to go over the results. Then Rachel Fresheisen will present an overview of our comprehensive plan update where we are so far. Then we have an Oddfellows Road bridge naming, not a renaming, as the Vice Mayor clarified at our last meeting. And then 2 public safety items, downtown public safety and the flock safety technology. So Mayor, I will turn it back over to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. First business item briefing, Ms. Marjorie Upshaw. Welcome back.
Thank you. Welcome back to all of you all. Okay. All right, let's roll. If I get this right, I'll be on. And there we go. Okay. Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to bring this business item briefing to you. I'm here this afternoon to brief you on a proposed update to the city's commercial property assessed clean energy, or CPACE ordinance. Lynchburg adopted its original CPACE ordinance in 2019, so CPACE itself is not new to the city. What has changed considerably since then is the Virginia law and the way that CPACE is administered across the Commonwealth. And the purpose of this amendment is to modernize our existing ordinance and allow Lynchburg to participate in Virginia's statewide CPACE program. So I'm going to start with why we're bringing this back to you now. Okay, thank you. You got it? Uh-oh, how did I do that? I wake up in the middle of the night worried about this clicker. Lynchburg's 2019 ordinance was established under Virginia's original model, where individual localities established and administered their own CPACE programs. That model proved difficult for the private financing market. A CPACE lender considering projects across Virginia could encounter different procedures and documentation from one locality to another. Virginia has since established a statewide program sponsored by Virginia Energy, and it's administered by the Virginia PACE Authority. And that provides participating localities and private capital providers with one consistent program structure. And we're now seeing the results from that statewide approach. So 26 Virginia localities are currently enabled, and 9 projects have closed, representing over $125 million in CPACE financing. Today's item is informational, and the purpose of the business item briefing is to familiarize council with CPACE and the proposed ordinance update before the ordinance returns for the required public hearing and council consideration. Okay, here we go. And I tried to put photographs in here of potential projects that this would be incredibly beneficial to the developer. So what exactly is CPACE? CPACE at its core is a voluntary private financing tool for commercial property improvements. A property owner identifies eligible improvements and works with a private capital provider to obtain financing. The city is not the lender. Eligible improvements can include energy and water efficiency, renewable energy, resiliency and stormwater improvements, environmental remediation, and EV infrastructure. CPACE can also be used in connection with qualifying new construction and adaptive reuse projects. What makes CPACE different from conventional financing is that the financing is secured by a voluntary special assessment lien on the property. Virginia PACE Authority reviews the application and determines whether the project meets the statewide program requirements. The city reviews the transaction documents and executes the documents establishing the special assessment lien under Virginia law and our local ordinance. If there is an existing mortgage lender, that lender must consent to CPACE financing. So in simple terms, the private capital provider makes the loan, Virginia PACE determines program eligibility, and the city provides the statutory mechanism for that special assessment lien. And from an economic development standpoint, this is why having the tool available matters. One reason is because we're 240 years old. So we have a lot of redevelopment that we engage in. So CPACE provides another potential source of private capital for investment in commercial property. For Lynchburg, I see potential applications in adaptive reuse, downtown redevelopment, hospitality, industrial modernization, and other significant commercial investments. CPACE can also work as part of a larger capital stack alongside conventional financing, historic tax credits, and enterprise zone incentives. So that's all the layering that we talk about all the time when we're talking about corridors and we're talking about how we redevelop, how we pivot, how we look at things the way they were used originally, and we're able to reimagine them. So importantly, there's no direct fiscal impact to the city. Virginia PACE has confirmed that Lynchburg incurs no program fees or project expenses. Our cost is the staff time associated with ordinance adoption, and when an actual project comes forward, project document review and final document execution. The city does not provide financing, incur debt, or guarantee repayment. Virginia PACE itself receives no funding from Virginia Energy. Its program fees are paid by the projects themselves that actually close. And this is our beautiful Bank of the James building downtown. Be another great project. And that brings me to what we're actually changing from the ordinance that council adopted in 2019. The biggest change is administration. Rather than Lynchburg maintaining its own standalone program, the amended ordinance aligns the city with Virginia's statewide CPACE program. Virginia PACE Authority administers the program and, as I said, determines project eligibility, keeps the city staff informed as the project moves through the process, and reviews the legal documents before they're sent to the city. The city retains a defined statutory role. We review the documents and execute the documents necessary to establish the special assessment lien. The ordinance also modernizes the program itself. Since 2019, eligible improvements have been expanded for this program to include the resiliency, stormwater management, environmental remediation, and EV charging infrastructure. The ordinance also provides greater flexibility for certain ground lease properties, increases retroactive financing period from 2 years to 3, subject to approval, removes the previous maximum loan amount, bases the financing term on the expected useful life of the improvements rather than the previous 30-year limit. So the fundamental financing concept that council approved in 2019 has not changed. What has changed is the structure around it. Virginia moved from a separately locally administered programs to a standardized statewide model designed to make CPACE easier for property owners, localities, and private capital providers to use. Updating our ordinance allows Lynchburg to participate in that system. Following today's briefing, staff will proceed with the required public hearing process and bring the ordinance back to council. So I just wanted to tell you, in 2019, when CPACE first came around, there was a project on the table, and it was what is now called the Lynchburg Grand. So we had a group that came in and wanted to purchase that property, and that property needs a complete upgrade on HVAC and all of those things. And they were aware of CPACE and brought that forward to us. And then we all know COVID happened. So that is why council, we put everything together and had the ordinance together for council to approve. So we were kind of ahead of the game at the beginning. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions for Ms. Upshaw? No? Ms. Timmer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much for the presentation.
You're welcome.
I mean, my main question is, it sounds like this is predominantly shifting some of the administrative component. Other than staffing costs, what are the benefits of that? What's the incentive to do that? Why would be shifting that more to the state alignment than the local alignment?
Just
the value.
I think them having that program in place there, I think it would cost us a lot more in staff time than it does to roll all that up into the state and have some pretty, agreed upon requirements for how they're going to look at it, how they're going to look at the requirements to see whether or not it is approved for CPACE or not. And when we looked at it originally, we left the door open that we could have a lender come in and do some of that, or the city assessor certainly didn't want to be involved in doing that. So it was really almost like a grocery list of things there that you could pick from. We left the door wide open. We were in hopes that this would occur to streamline the entire process, because I think it makes it a lot less expensive in time for staff here. And it also gives the developers, whether they come from somewhere else or they're in our own backyard, they have a consistent guidelines to be able to look at to see whether or not they want to do. They don't have to go from one municipality to another, and it changes every time.
Okay, that's helpful.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Ms. Upshaw.
Thank you.
Next item, 5612 and 5616 Edgewood Avenue rezoning, perimeter roofing, exterior. Ms. Rachel Fleshizer.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. Here we go. The purpose of this rezoning is to amend previously approved proffers and to bring the current use of the site as a roofing company into compliance with the zoning ordinance. Planning Commission recommended approval of the rezoning for 5612 Edgewood and denial of the rezoning for 5616 Edgewood at their public hearing on July 8th. The subject property contains approximately, contains approximately 1.1 acres. Our future land use map recommends low-density residential use for the properties. These are dominated by single-family detached housing at densities of up to 4 dwelling units per acre. The existing R2 low-medium density residential was established in 1978. The existing B3 Community Business District zoning and B3C Community Business District conditional zoning was established in 2001. The property at 5612 Edgewood contains an existing one-story commercial building constructed in 1985. The structure is approximately 6,700 square feet in size and is currently occupied by perimeter roofing and exteriors. Approximately 8,900 square feet of paving also existed prior to the addition of a gravel lot. The property at 5616 Edgewood contains a single-family rental residence constructed in 1944, is approximately 1,400 square feet in size. About 15,000 square feet of gravel has been added at the rear of the subject properties and on the adjacent railroad property to allow for additional parking and drive aisle for the company's construction vehicles. The petitioner has a lease with Norfolk Southern Railway for limited use of the railway property that has the encroaching gravel lot. The petitioner was issued a notice of violation in October of last year for installing the gravel parking area and drive aisle without an approved site plan or permits. It does not comply with the previously approved proffers in the B3C Community Business District conditional area and is partially located in the R2 low medium density residential area, which is not permitted. The properties are bordered to the north by residential uses along Edgewood, to the east by commercial uses, and to the south by Norfolk Southern Railroad, and to the west by more residential. The property at 56 Edgewood has been used commercially since 1985 when the structure was built. Perimeter roofing has occupied the space since 2019. The continued use of that property with the addition of the gravel lot should have no negative impact on the surrounding area. However, Planning Commission expressed concerns regarding the expansion of commercial zoning further into the existing residential neighborhood. Building, preserving, and strengthening neighborhoods is a goal that is repeated throughout our comprehensive plan, and the potential for further commercial development can alter the character and dynamic of a neighborhood. The property at 5616 Edgewood Avenue has been a residence since 1944 when the existing building was constructed. The continued use of the property as a rental would not have negative impact on the surrounding area and does provide a buffer between the commercial use and the other residential in the area. However, if the rezoning were approved, the residents could transition or the site could be redeveloped to use the property for commercial purposes. This would eliminate the buffer between the commercial site and the neighboring residences. This item will return for City Council public hearing on September 9th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? No? Item number 3, 802 Court Street, rezoning Gilliam House condominium. Ms. Fleshout.
Thank you again. The purpose of this rezoning is to allow for a condominium containing 4 residential units. Planning Commission recommended approval of this petition at their public hearing on August 12th. Our future land use map recommends downtown uses for the subject property. These areas are a mix of retail, entertainment, restaurant, office, residential, and other uses. Demolition of historic buildings is appropriate in these areas. The subject property was part of the original city limits established in 1786, and the existing B1 zoning was established in 1978. The property contains 0.167 acres and contains a 3-story historic structure constructed in 1860. It currently contains 2 residential units and 1 commercial unit on the ground floor with residential above, and is approximately 5,900 square feet in size. The property is surrounded on all sides by a mix of residential, commercial, parking, etc., as is consistent with the downtown area. If approved, the structure would be converted into the 4 residential units. Interior modifications will be made. There are no exterior additions or changes proposed at this time. The B4 district does not have a parking requirement. However, the petitioner has indicated that off-street parking would be provided through parking permits at the Clay Street parking deck, located just across the street. The proposed multi-household structure would be a by right use in the proposed B4 district and would agree with the current future land use map designation. It would also facilitate the continued use of a historic structure without altering its exterior character. This item would return for City Council public hearing on September 9th.
Any questions? No? Item number 4, 533 Leesville Road, rezoning residential office use. Ms. Rachel.
This thing's so sensitive. Okay. Thank you again. The purpose of this petition is to allow the development of the site as a rental office space with parking in front of the structure, which is not permitted by the current zoning. Planning Commission recommended denial of this item at their public hearing on July 8th. The subject property consists of approximately 1.1 acres at 533 Leesville Road. Our future land use map recommends medium density residential uses. These are typically smaller lot, single family detached housing, duplexes, and townhomes. Property is currently zoned B1 Limited Business District, which our zoning ordinance describes as a district that provides for office, retail, restaurant, and service uses that are compatible with nearby residential areas because they are in scale with adjacent neighborhood development and have pedestrian-oriented designs. The B1 district does not permit parking in front of the building in order to promote neighborhood scale development. The proposed layout is shown here. For context, because I'm sure some of you may be wondering, the property adjacent to this is also zoned to B1, and it does have parking in the front. That property was developed around 2008. When the zoning ordinance was updated in 2016, the B1 district was combined with the B2 district, meaning that district was expanded to allow more uses. B1 districts are intended to be located near residential areas. Opening up the district to more uses meant that there could be additional impacts on residential. So the requirement for parking to be behind the front wall of the building was added to make sure these commercial areas were more compatible with neighborhoods. Locating parking behind the front building line protects those nearby residential uses and allows for a transition between them and the commercial areas. Planning Commission shared concerns that rezoning the property for the sole use of allowing the parking in front of the building may be inappropriate, since the B1 district is specifically intended to provide neighborhood scale development near residential areas. The property is bound to the west by townhomes and a church. There are office uses adjoining the property to the north. To the south and east, there are single household residential and duplex uses. Again, this item would also return for City Council public hearing on September 8th.
Any questions? Discussion? No? Mr. Beamer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Has the owner indicated what they plan to do with the construction?
I believe the application just listed an office. However, I think at the Planning Commission, it was mentioned it may be some sort of medical or dental use.
Okay. I did get a chance to go out and visit the location. That whole area pretty much going that direction, at least, is all medical facilities. And Leesville Road has kind of become a hot button place for a lot of development. Some I've supported and some I haven't. But this most likely, I think, might become medical. And the owner is the dental place next door. He has already created an entrance with this in mind. And when he connected to sewer, he went a few thousand feet back in the woods to make that happen. So he's kind of created some of the infrastructure to make this, and he's a long-term commitment to the community. So I told him I would be in favor of, I don't usually disagree with my planning commission. I think they do a great job, but this one fits the medical area that's becoming. I think it's long-term, probably a good idea. And I don't like every idea, but this one actually made some sense. If we force him to do the back, he says more than likely he'll have to put in a very expensive elevator that probably would be cost prohibitive and might kill the project. So I don't know if that was real or whatever, but I do generally support businesses, and I think this one makes some sense. So I hope my colleagues will look at it, maybe come out and visit it if you haven't already, and then make up your own mind.
Anyone else? Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you.
The next item, number 5, Boards and Commission Quarterly Report. Ms. Alicia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like you said, this is your quarterly report. This is Q3. Here is a look at your volunteer opportunities. This covers September and October term expirations. Heading into the first, Social Service Advisory Board. This group meets the third Tuesday bi-monthly down here on 99 9th Street, the Human Services Building. This group oversees citizen social welfare and monitors social welfare programs. They help dispel myths about what social services is. You'll be serving a vulnerable population, and advocating with that in mind is very important. Next is the Lynchburg Redevelopment and Housing Authority. They meet the third Thursday monthly over on Thompson Drive at the Housing Authority. They administer housing assistance and urban renewal programs. Members can serve up to 3 consecutive 4-year terms. You have 2 upcoming vacancies and 1 current vacancy. That current vacancy has to be a client of the Housing Authority, so looking for something specific there. The next is the Building Code Appeals Board. And if you're having deja vu, you are correct. You all did just appoint a full board to this. That was great work on your part. 2 of those terms just had expiration dates of September of this year, so looking to reappoint those members. And then lastly is the Greater Lynchburg Transit Company Board of Directors. They meet the first Wednesday of each month at the Kemper Street Transfer Station. They oversee policies and operations of GLTC. Members can serve up to 3 consecutive 3-year terms, and there are 3 reappointments on this board. So next steps, you all are scheduled for a closed session September 22nd. I'll be collecting applications and resume through Monday, September 14th. That QR code gets you to our application, and my contact information is in the bottom right if anybody has any questions. That's all I have.
Thank you. Next item, work session agenda item, Leesville Road speed study results. Mr. Lee Newland.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of council. I am here this afternoon to introduce a consulting firm that is Clark Nexon. They have done a speed study for Leesville Road for the city, and they will be going over that. I'm going to introduce Mr. John Stewart. I think he's going to start. And I'm sorry, this gentleman. Thank you. I was going to butcher that name. So, John, if you get started, we'll go through this.
Thank you, Lee. Again, John Stewart, project manager, and my colleague is Dr. Karzan Bahalian. He'll be going over some of the data that was collected on the corridor. But really, to start out, we wanted to just talk a little about something that we all experience, I think, every day coming to this meeting. We all have a little bit of transportation engineer in us, I like to say, because what we see every day is how the road design influences the speed that we drive. A great example here is right out on 460. Nice wide open area, wide shoulders, pretty straight, and not a lot of distractions. So the natural tendency is you're going to drive a little faster, and that's what it was designed for. You go into a more neighborhood street, this one would be in one way, you've got cars, you're in a residential area, you're naturally going to want to drive a little slower, and that's a good thing for safety reasons. So the biggest element of this is when you're driving that large hunk of metal down a road, the stopping sight distance is what really is where the damages can occur. And depending on how fast you're going, the longer it takes to stop, the higher the speed that a collision or a crash occurs, and the injuries or elements that are damaged are more severe. So that's something that we have to take into account when we design a road. We put in features to help manage that and make things a little safer. Includes some examples like on the Lynchburg Expressway, concrete median barriers, guardrail, good signing always helps. And then in some locations where you're accommodating different multimodal users, you've got designated bike lanes, which gives the bike riders a designated area for them to ride their bike safely. Other things that we see everywhere, crosswalks for pedestrians crossing intersections safely. Leesville Road really is a pretty straightforward 4-lane undivided roadway with curb and gutter. It's got fairly straightforward geometry. This is a one section that has a little guardrail in it. For the most part, it's pretty straightforward, curb and gutter, nice lanes for vehicular traffic. And that's pretty much the whole segment. So what do we do when we want to manage the speed on these roadways? There's different factors. You put a speed limit on it, but if drivers are not adapting to that desired speed limit, there's things you can do. Enterprise Parkway is a good example where speed fine signs, that's not a great graphic where you can see them, but off in the distance, it's this higher fines for speeding signs. We've got speed limit detection signs that tell you how fast you're going to say, hey, slow up a little bit, you're going a little too fast. And then you've got the Fifth Street roundabout, which is a great example of a roundabout and controlling people's speed. And the beauty of the roundabout is that people are going to drive slower. So if you do have a crash, your injuries and incidents are going to be a little less severe. So the transportation engineering principle is you want the road design to match what your anticipated driver behavior is going to be. What is their operating speed going to be on the corridor? If you put something like 460 on Leesville Road, people are going to drive a lot faster. If you close in the roadway a little bit, put in some cars, some obstacles, people are going to drive slower. But it's that basic engineering principle of having the road design match the desired behavior. And what works best is when you're getting the traffic through and they're getting through safely. So those are the two main things we're looking for.
So specific to our study area, it is 2.2 miles of Leesville Road between Airport Road and Timber Lake. It is 4-lane undivided, as John mentioned. The average daily traffic is about 10,000 vehicles per day. 2 speed zones. What you see in the blue is about 2/3 of the roadway. In the southern part is 45 mile per hour posted. The yellow portion is about 0.8 miles. 1/3 of the roadway is 35 mile per hour. Next slide. Part of this task for the city, we collected speed data. What you see on the screen by those stars. So 2 locations within the 35 mile per hour zone and 2 locations at 45 mile per hour zone. The data was collected for 7 days, so a lot of data collected to just get an idea about the speed behavior of the roadway. So I'm not going to bother you with all these numbers, just to show you we collect per direction for each location for 7 days. We do some statistical analysis to get an idea about the average speed within each location that we collected data. So in the next slide, I kind of show you the more simplified version. On this slide is, as you see, within the 45 mile per hour, both directions. The column before the last is the 85th percentile. This is a very widely used metric in the traffic engineering. It tells you basically what is the speed on the roadway. As you see in the 45 mile per hour, we see around 51 mile per hour speed. So 85% of the drivers on that stretch is driving at 51 mile per hour or less. Another metric that we try to see is the 50th percentile. So half of the drivers, what speed they are driving. So as you see, it's around 45 mile per hour. This is good, but that means the other half are driving above the 45 mile per hour. So similarly for the 35 mile per hour, the 85th percentile, which is our metric for measuring speed, is around 44 mile per hour. So it seems that they are treating the 35 mile per hour as 45 mile per hour. For that zone area, as you see, the 50% percentile is 39 and 38. So it's around 39. So 50%, half of the drivers are driving at 39 mile per hour or less. Again, the other half are driving more than 39 mile per hour. So that's a good indication that most of the drivers are driving above the speed limit. Here, the chart is basically the same data, but the table, as you see on the highlighted portion, we just want to see what is the percentage of drivers driving at speed limit. For this 35 mile per hour, you see around 20%, depending on the direction, but on average, only 20% of the drivers are driving 35 mile per hour. That means the other 80% are above speed limit. Same thing for the 45, next slide. So as we show in the 50th percentile, so only half of drivers are driving at the speed limit of 45 mile per hour. Again, the other half is above that speed limit. Next slide. So if we summarize all the data, I think we can conclude easily that the 35 mile per hour speed zone treated as 45 mile per hour, and the 45 mile per hour is treated as, I'll say, 50 mile per hour. These two images are just, by the gas station. If you look at the right, the posted speed is 35. Look at the left is 45. We intentionally put that there because the cross-section, the characteristics of the roadway remains unchanged. So it's just the posted speed limit that changed. So the driver's driving the same way as 45 mile per hour. Based on the request, next slide, from the city, we looked at the crash history, as John mentioned, to relate the speed with the safety. we looked at the severe injury. So in the 9-year period, I think 2026 is not complete, but we saw only one severe injury within the 35 mile per hour compared to the 45 mile per hour zone is we have 6, 2 of them are fatalities. So a good indication that higher speed is contributing to more crashes and of course more severe crashes. John?
So looking at the overall big picture and circling back to how the road works, that principle of the road design matching the desired operating speed, and are the operational requirements balancing out with the safety needs of the corridor? And really, I think at this point, you can look at it that they are very closely aligned. It's a fairly straightforward road. It's very wide and open. So drivers are driving according to what the road design is. Is there a need to change anything? I think really as the accident data showed, it's not problematic at this point. There don't appear to be any major issues on the corridor. So at this point, doing anything is probably not necessary, but the city can also make a decision based on engineering judgment and other factors that may be occurring on the corridor. So other than that, it's a fairly safely operating road and meets the operational needs of the city. So I think we can go to any questions that the audience or the city council members may have. Thank you.
Mr. Deemer?
Thank you, first of all, for the study. It's pretty comprehensive. Answered a lot of my questions. I've lived in that general area for quite a while, and it's gone from a 2-lane to 4-lane during that period. On Friday and Saturday nights, the motorcycles are racing. And I always say that because we got some police officers in the room, and I love the directed patrols they've been putting out there and the radar. It seems to be helping a little bit. The straightaway is the problem. You know, I saw well over a dozen over 75 miles an hour, and that was the highest you registered. But I'm sure there were some that were very much in excess of that. I almost pulled out in front of one tonight who was probably going about 90. And I almost didn't see him because there was a curve right before I come out, and I didn't see him coming around it. And my father used to pull out in front of people like that, and I'd say, Dad, you know, this guy's just, he said, they got brakes. I was like, oh my goodness, that's old school. But, you know, the 35 to 45, I think a lot of people are staying 35, and it's the disparity that causes a lot of issues. When you got real low and real high in the same area, that's when it gets dangerous. So I appreciate the information. I agree with you that it doesn't seem to call for any major changes at this point. I've been thinking about potentially taking it all to 35 is the easiest, cheapest thing to do. But all the 50-mile-an-hour people that are exceeding the 45 will be not so happy with me. If I try to push them down to 35, they'll still do 45, I'm sure. So I think we leave well enough alone, and I do appreciate the good picture of what we got, of what's going on. Just be careful on Leesville Road on Friday and Saturday night. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you for your report. I might see it a little bit differently. I would contend that we have an opportunity to address something on the southern end of town. And I'm not sure exactly what we should do at this moment, but I would be interested in for the 35-mile-an-hour zone, adding in if you speed in that 35-mile-an-hour zone, it's a minimum of $250. You got a school right there. We know the speeds have been an issue. Development continues to go, at least for the 35-mile-an-hour zone. I would submit that that's something we should consider. I did see on your slide that there was a potential thought of increasing it to 45 all throughout. I could see that somewhat helping. But considering what's at that intersection, the issues we have at the other intersection of Heritage and Schules, That's my 2 cents from the other side of the ward, as it were. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, we can.
Mr. Deemer?
Just a quick comment. I agree with Chris. I think Mr. Feraldi's onto something. I've seen that successfully used to help make things a little safer. People don't like to pay big tickets. I don't want anybody to die on Leesville Road, right? And Heritage High School is absolutely a problematic area. Experienced a car that was totaled by a family member right in front of there. So I agree. Taking it all up to 45 is the kind of opposite direction of what I was thinking, but some sort of consistency to keep the disparity of the high and low speeds, but also maybe he's onto something, and I'd be open to that. Thank y'all for coming.
Thank you. Did y'all find any problems with all the new developments out there? Did you find any problems with congestion?
No, I think the ADT for like the average daily traffic for a 4-lane is below the capacity of the roadway. I don't think I'll say even the opposite. Maybe the less vehicles on this roadway also encouraging people to speed. That will be my reading based on the data.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you, sirs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next, we have a comprehensive plan update. Ms. Rachel.
Hello again. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of Planning, City Council, sorry. I gave an overview of our comprehensive plans, major themes earlier this year in March at PDC. I'm here today to share an update on the comprehensive plan to full council, as well as to follow up on some of the housing discussions that council has mentioned at some point in the past few meetings. To start with just the basics, the what, the why, and the how. The comprehensive plan, of course, is a high-level planning document that provides long-range policy direction. We want the plan to articulate the community's vision for where we want to be in 20-plus years. It also includes strategies to achieve that vision. Once adopted, the plan is used as our decision-making guide for changes to our natural and built environment. The plan's also the foundation for our regulatory tools, like our zoning and subdivision ordinances. The plan itself is not an ordinance or code, but it is the basis for those codes. We update the plan not just because state code says we have to, but they do tell us that. Our city's authority and responsibility to develop and update a comp plan comes from state code, which dictates some of what needs to go into the plan, how it's adopted, and when it must be reviewed. Of course, more important than just a state code requirement, we update the plan because no community is static. Communities change over time. Our goals can change as well. The process is broken down into 3 phases, starting with the initial phase of community input and data gathering, where we hear from the public, stakeholders, institutions, et cetera. We take that information, move into plan drafting, which is where we kind of put pen to paper on what we heard, form recommendations, and then once all the chapters have been drafted and reviewed by Planning Commission, we'll move into the review and refining phase, which will include another round of community feedback on the final draft, review by VDOT, and public hearings. Throughout the community input phase, we've heard all the things that one would expect to hear, that is important to our community, like investing in public safety, infrastructure, schools, et cetera. It's obvious that council values these areas as well, given recent investments and the new LPD headquarters, the financial commitment council made towards school facilities, numerous road and utility projects through our CIP. Some of the other areas I want to highlight today are housing, mobility, economic development, and quality of life. So starting with housing, in recent months, the housing topic has come up several times in council's discussions as it relates to density and occupancy. So we're going to talk a little more about that. There is an opportunity to lay groundwork for recommendations on adjustments to our current zoning code through the comprehensive plan if council so desires. Because the comprehensive plan is the basis for our zoning and subdivision ordinances, any code updates that would follow plan adoption, we would want those to align with the goals that are in the plan. So to kind of start the housing conversation within the context of housing demand, our population in the 2020 census was 79,000. According to Weldon Cooper Center, that is estimated to grow to about 93 to 94,000 by 2050. Not meeting housing demand can create challenges for the city and our residents. That might include, slowed growth if our tax base doesn't continue to grow to keep up, with inflation to provide city services. Increased housing demand, which can make housing become less affordable as costs go up. That results in more cost-burdened households in our community. 32% of Lynchburg households are already cost burdened, meaning they spend more than 30% of their income on housing. 32% are cost burdened. That could also potentially push growth to the surrounding counties. And if residential growth shifts, commercial and industrial growth will tend to follow that as well. Our survey responses indicate that there is a need for more housing options in Lynchburg. Only 21% of respondents said that the city has sufficient housing for residents of all incomes, and 25% said that there is sufficient housing in general. So responses are indicating a need there. During the public input phase, we also heard about, lack of missing middle housing types. This means the gap between single family and high density apartments, things like duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, row homes, etc. We also got feedback on setbacks, our lot size standards. These can make it difficult to provide some of those missing middle housing types. We also heard from the community about opportunities to promote infill development that the city can capitalize on. Based on that, the plan recommends evaluating our zoning districts to ensure dwelling types are permitted appropriately and achieve the housing types and styles desired, identifying barriers to infill development and building in flexibility. We have some of this in our existing code, such as a setback allowance, where we allow a setback to be matched with an existing neighborhood, even if it doesn't quite meet the written code number. This is a suggestion to evaluate those further and see if there are other ways to facilitate redevelopment to permit appropriately scaled new construction within our existing neighborhoods. And, we've heard the concern from council about some of these larger developments and the impact they can have on our infrastructure. It was mentioned just now that, Leesville Road has seen a lot of growth. So how can we spread some of that impact throughout our neighborhoods that are already developed? Infill allows us to use the streets and the infrastructure that we already have and continue to grow at the same time. I mentioned the missing middle housing types, but we do have some of these examples of these types of housing right here in our city, but they're most often seen in the older parts because our current zoning ordinance doesn't permit most of these by right, except in R4, which also allows much higher density development, such as, high density apartments. So naturally, there's not really an incentive for a developer to create these housing types when a higher density option would be, more economical for them. These housing types can be good options to create more workforce housing. And when we say workforce housing, that means housing options that are affordable to our essential workforce. And our essential workforce are the people that staff our essential institutions and amenities like teachers, emergency personnel, nurses, utility workers, service and retail workers, etc. I know that council has also been concerned about home ownership. And when we say workforce housing, that doesn't have to mean just rental units, because it is possible to own half of a duplex or a row home or a condo in a 6-unit building. So how do we get more of this? One of the biggest takeaways from our comprehensive planning process is that our zoning ordinance goes from 0 to 60 very quickly. We have 4 residential-based zoning districts. They started a very low-density single-family development in R1, which very slightly increases in R2, but still is only allowing single-family. R3 allows duplexes, and then R4 jumps up to 20-plus units per acre for apartments. So the current zoning ordinance doesn't really facilitate the development of the missing middle housing types that we talked about. Internally as staff, we've kind of discussed how we need almost like a R3.5 type district to bridge the gap between the very low density and the very high density. So, that might look something like creating a new zoning district that would fall between R3 and R4 that would allow more types of housing. Or we could potentially look at adjusting the R3 district to allow more types of housing for triplexes, quadplexes, row homes, et cetera. The plan currently recommends evaluating our zoning districts in a general sense, just to identify any needed adjustments to facilitate the missing middle housing. These are a couple of ways we could do that. Infill development is, like I said, another area of opportunity for the city to capitalize on. Infill being the development of residential housing on existing lots that are either vacant or underutilized in our neighborhoods that are already built out. You could see here in the College Hill neighborhood, in just a couple of blocks, there are several vacant lots that could potentially be infilled with new homes. The benefit, of course, being that infrastructure is already there, the street, the utilities are already in place, potentially lowering development costs, as opposed to building entirely new neighborhoods with new streets and utility extensions, that sort of thing. A more detailed example of infill in action is seen here in Daniels Hill. A year ago, this was a vacant lot, not contributing much to the neighborhood other than empty space. The property has now been improved with a new residential home, bringing some investment and new construction into the neighborhood. Occupancy is something that's not really emerged as a priority from our public input phase, but the standard for occupancy did come up earlier this year at City Council's work sessions. Our current code allows up to 3 unrelated individuals to occupy a dwelling unit. There potentially ways you could alter that would be to increase the occupancy standard in all zoning districts, or you could look at increasing the occupancy standard only in higher density residential districts. This second option would protect our lower density single family neighborhoods. If we do pursue it, maybe we should consider about what we had discussed previously about trying to achieve that R3.5 missing middle district to facilitate the transition. First determining what adjustments we want to make to our zoning districts and then deciding what would be appropriate for occupancy. In the same vein, occupancy also came up in relation to short-term rentals. The city currently has about 650 registered short-term rentals, which are units that can be rented through a service like Airbnb, VRBO, et cetera. Short-term rentals currently allow up to 4 unrelated individuals. If council desired, you could potentially align the occupancy standard for short-term rentals to, equal the same, to be equivalent with the other dwelling units, which is 3 unrelated. Long-term short-term rental. Consider the long-term impact of short-term rentals on our housing stock, because many of these units are dedicated short-term rentals, meaning they are not available as regular everyday housing for Lynchburg residents. Yeah.
Mr. Farad?
Just an observation. So one of the things you said, and tell me if I'm mishearing you, is that middle market on the housing is the missing a missing piece. That's
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Well, I would guess that a lot of the middle market stock comes in that Fort Avenue corridor where we see a high concentration of Airbnbs also.
And you think the duplex, you think the missing middle may be eaten up by?
Well, just on a heat map.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just an observation.
And there is a good number of duplex type development in that area as well. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you.
That summarizes kind of the housing piece of today's presentation. Staff is aware that density and occupancy are things that council has expressed interest in exploring. Of course, the majority of council can initiate changes to those ordinances at any point. Staff's recommendation is to get through the comprehensive plan process, weaving in these recommendations as appropriate to lay the groundwork for future code updates. You would implement the recommendation following the adoption of the plan.
Mr. Bishop?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Rachel. That was actually a really, really insightful presentation. I am thankful to see what's coming of this part of the comprehensive plan, because I do think that this is hitting on some concerns that people generally have in the city. One of the questions that I have, if you can go back to, keep going, I'll tell you when to stop if you don't go too fast. One more. Keep going. I think it's the next one. No, it's the one that talks about setbacks and lot sizes. I think, did I miss that?
Yeah, that's this one.
Okay. So I hear what you're saying about the adding a zoning district between R3 and R4, and I don't disagree with that. I think that it does make sense to have something for the duplexes and triplexes that isn't apartment buildings. I'm inclined to support that recommendation that you guys presented. One of the questions that I have, though, is when you look at the setbacks and lot size standards, where does that fit in if we were to have somebody that wanted to do like a tiny home development, a legitimate tiny home subdivision? Is there some sort of change or additional zoning district that we would need for something like that if that was something somebody was trying to do towards more home ownership opportunities at a lower price point? Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. So at this point, I would say, if someone were to want to pursue that, they would need to go to one of the higher density, like an R3 or R4, because those do allow 4,000 square foot lots. That's fairly small. However, when people pursue that, they also see, well, I could get a lot more density through duplexes or apartments.
Correct.
So, it's an interesting kind of conundrum there to how do you facilitate it without opening the door to
how do you facilitate it without opening the door to a lot more apartment complexes that are going to be rental units, which I think before we even allow that, we would need to consider what's the rental market looking like for apartments, what's the vacancy rate, because I don't know that that's really, from what I see here, the missing piece of the puzzle isn't apartments to rent. The missing piece of the puzzle is real estate for people to purchase, right? And is there something that we're missing here that we could look at as potentially, just some way that we could kind of come up with something that's not necessarily on an apartment complex, but would permit that kind of like a tiny home style subdivision that would allow people, to have something that they could own and smaller lots. The setback thing is very interesting to me because the setbacks in the city really aren't a lot anyways.
in the higher districts. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of interesting to see. I've seen where they're, right around the corner from where I live in Vista Acres, they put that new subdivision in. I don't know when they started that, 3 or 4 years ago, maybe, and they put all those homes in. I mean, I feel like you could reach out the window from one with a broom and touch the other one. So the setbacks, to me, when I look at the setbacks, that's not really a huge challenge there, at least on the sides, right? And maybe front and rear setbacks may be an issue that impacts with the lot size. But I'm just curious, is there a way that we can come up with something where, because there's a couple tiny homes that somebody built on Grove Road. You familiar with those? Have you seen them? And, I just wondered, because I walked through them while they were being built. It was actually pretty neat the way the guy put them together, and it was a novel concept, and it was pretty inexpensive the way that he built them, and people can own them, right? It's a piece of real estate. That's a part of the dream in America, right? People want to own property. They want to own real estate. If we can come up with a way in Lynchburg that kind of creates that way to enter ownership, I think that would be just some thoughts.
Sure. Yeah.
That's all.
The concept of a cottage court, which is kind of like tiny homes before tiny homes were a thing,
Sure.
has come up in a couple of our neighborhood planning efforts. So yeah, we could look more at that.
Yeah, I think that would be really kind of neat to take a look at that. And then let me see if I got any other. Oh yeah, one other note here on I'm inclined to agree with what you all presented about the occupancy. You know, if we've got a standard for short-term rentals, but then we've got a standard for regular rentals, they probably should align one way or the other. I don't think that there should be a difference between the two of those. I don't think that's equal. That's the way I look at that. Then one question I have about that, there's something that Mr. Friedman presented to us in the legislative update was parking spaces per unit. I think is something that we're no longer allowed to factor in zoning decisions. Is that, if we can get some more detail on that?
Yeah.
Because that's going to be something to consider, I think, when we look at those occupancy things we need to be concerned about. You know, my concern is I don't want people parking in my neighbor's front yards.
Sure.
That's always the biggest challenge and issue that you hear about, especially in these older subdivisions that don't have curb and gutter. When you end up with a bunch of people renting in a property that has a driveway you can fit one or two cars in, inevitably there's a lot of street parking, and then people are parking in people's yards, parking in the grass, and you know that's what we want to try to avoid to protect those neighborhoods. So that's a concern because, you know, I guess that's something we got to factor in these considerations too, is how do we address that change in the zoning law at the state level with these decisions we're making here? Because you guys were well underway with this before that change made.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, you know, if we could just kind of make sure we get some asterisks or footnotes in this that kind of explains.
Yeah,
these are some
we'll make
new
sure we're
considerations
aligned.
that we got to take into with this. But no, but this has been very helpful, and I appreciate the information.
Okay. Thank you. Got a couple more. Housing was kind of the highlight, but moving on to mobility, we heard that the city needs to improve safety for all users of our transportation network, with the goal of creating a seamless transportation system through connecting and integrating our roads, transit, bike, and pedestrian infrastructure to allow people to move safely and efficiently. These day-to-day trips also tie in with our regional infrastructure like Amtrak and the Lynchburg Regional Airport. Our residents want us to bring all that together to make our transportation network stronger. We also heard input on the flow of our road network, which is, of course, our primary form of transportation infrastructure as it relates to the movement of people and goods, connecting our neighborhoods, businesses, and recreational spaces. Public engagement told us that while overall people feel like the city's road network is adequate, there are key corridors where they feel like they could see improvements for safety and capacity, key corridors being those with higher traffic volumes and routes facilitating movements across the city, make these focal points for development and transportation planning. So based on that, the plan recommends targeting higher crash and traffic areas as priorities for analysis and investment, as well as continuing to develop the integrated transportation network that improves safety for everyone. Economic development is everything, as Margette likes to say. Factors like housing, quality of life, education, and transportation all tie into economic development, because if you foster a place where people want to live, that is attractive to employers who are looking to remain or expand or locate in Lynchburg. The plan recommends continuing to improve our site readiness to reduce barriers for new industry looking to locate here, as well as attracting and supporting businesses in Lynchburg through the strategic use of our Economic Development Authority and various incentives, some of which we heard about today. Mixed-use development, as seen on the bottom right side here, such as Bedford Avenue, is another economic development strategy promoting vibrant corridors and creative, attractive, and convenient places for people to live and access commercial and as well as jobs. Strengthens our local economy. It's also another way we can lessen the strain on our transportation network, again, which we've heard about today, by locating people where they need to go or want to go. We want them to live near where they need to be. The comprehensive plan also gives us the opportunity to evaluate our land use decisions and the relationship with our future land use, our zoning, our key transportation corridors, and programs like the enterprise zone. Of course, Margette and her team evaluate those areas closely to make sure they're applied to places with appropriate zoning, and we're taking this opportunity to make sure that these are aligned together. Residents also highly value our community's natural resources and recreation spaces, all factoring into quality of life. Access to Parks and Rec is important to our community's health because they provide basic needs like clean air and water, recreational spaces. They contribute to our physical and mental health and present opportunities for tourism as well. Sports tourism allows us to capitalize on investments that benefit both the health and well-being of our residents as well as benefit the economy. An example of this that's already kind of in the works is the Peaks to Creeks Trail, which connects residents to an employment center via trail connection between Ivy Creek and Innovation Park and Peaksview Park. This particular project also incorporates disc golf, which has become an important part of the region's sports tourism industry. Other potential opportunities exist through outdoor sports complexes. While the city has a lot of great fields and facilities, many of them don't meet the requirements to attract larger tournaments. In planning for the future, we should consider if and where these venues to serve larger events could be located. And in summary, continued investment in our parks and recreation should be seen as a direct investment in both community health and wellness, as well as our local economy. This summarizes the main themes, like I said, with the special focus on housing today. Hopefully this has given us some things to consider as we move forward and get closer to a final draft. The plan draft is available online now. There is also a survey that is live as well, so it's not too late for community input. We started this process with community input, and we'll continue that to the end. As we look ahead to our Planning Commission's final 2 work sessions, a public open house this fall, which will be another great opportunity for public input prior to public hearings. And the plan will be back before City Council for review after Planning Commission's final recommendations.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, Fellows Road Bridge naming.
Yes, sir.
Not renaming, but naming.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Kent White.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of council, so the specific request in front of you is to petition the Commonwealth Transportation Board to name Oddfellows Road Bridge where it crosses US 460 in memory of Earl Brooks Sr. The bridge itself is part of the Virginia Department of Transportation road network. That's why you would be petitioning the Commonwealth Transportation Board. So what does that mean in practical terms? If council wanted to do this, you would adopt a resolution in support of the naming, as well as a commitment to fund the VDOT cost to fabricate and install the signs. We estimate those at about $1,000. Our amazing museum director, Ted Delaney, gave us a little bit of background on Mr. Brooks and members of the public who brought this petition forward initially are with us as well. So just quick background, Mr. Brooks, he was born and raised in Lynchburg. He lived here his entire life in the Fairview Heights neighborhood. He later became known as the Earl of Lynchburg. He raced in the Grand National Winston Cup, where he started 262 races, 37 top 10 finishes. He participated in the Daytona 500 and 3 times was in the nation's top 20 in points. But in terms of the community impact himself, he operated a automobile repair garage for over 30 years, both on Mayflower Drive and ironically on Oddfellows Road, almost exactly where this bridge is today. So this item came by way of council or from the public through council to the Physical Development Committee. By consensus of that committee, they asked that we bring this forward to you for work session for full council's review ahead of your September 8th meeting where this would be on general business. So with that, happy to answer any questions. Yes, Mayor.
Any questions? Mr. Dingman.
I don't have any questions. I've got some things I noted. I passed out if you saw this, and I thought it was interesting that the number on his car is 26, and it's the year 2026. So this might be a good year to respect Mr. Brooks' contribution to our area. He had a nickname for Lynchburg he called it, and it was on his car on the back. Can't quite see it in this, but it's the Heart, and he called us the Heart City. And I like that. I think that's our city has a lot of heart. The residents have a lot of heart. I thank the family for being here today. I thank them for their support. I hope you get a chance, colleagues, to meet Mr. Brooks. It's been a pleasure to know him, and also David, who initially contacted me, but has businesses out there. I've received absolutely no opposition, and well over 300 people have signed the petition at this point. So the community support has been great. Here's your chance to ask any questions you have about it. I appreciate y'all's support.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell.
I just want to say that I appreciate you, Vice Mayor Deemer, for taking this on and connecting with the Brooks. I think this is a really, really great idea. And I don't know if any of you all would like to say anything, anybody from the family, but Mr. Mayor, I think that if they're here, if there's anything that they would like to say, I'd love to hear from them.
I would just like to thank everyone and really taking all this into consideration and doing this. I know my daddy would be tickled to death. This would be putting the crown on it when he was put into the Lynchburg Sports Hall of Fame. He sat down and cried. So now I know he would be looking down and crying now. And I just thank every one of you for your support. Thank you so much. The family thanks you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
One other thing that would be interesting to the public tuning in tonight. There was a movie made, not necessarily directly about Mr. Brooks, but he did have his part in it. Somebody played his role, and it was called Grease Lightning, and it was Richard Pryor was the star of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about one of the first African-American NASCAR drivers,
Mm-hmm.
and Mr. Brooks's long lifetime friendship with that driver. And it's a really neat story.
Mm.
I've tried to find the video online to watch the movie because I've never seen it, and I've yet to find it. And usually you can find just about anything. But if anybody knows where to watch that movie, let me know because I'd like to see it. It's from the 70s, of course, and but it was cool. I seen some clips of it on YouTube that were very interesting, but I haven't seen the whole movie yet. So
I seen the whole movie. I was there when it came out. Back then, I was a fan of Richard Pryor. Back then. Okay. No.
He said enough.
No. Thank y'all. Item number 9, downtown public safety, Chief Edwards.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, and members of council. Appreciate you having us here today to provide an overview on downtown public safety. Joining me today is Captain Joel Hinckley, and he will lead us in this presentation.
Make sure it's working. Thank you. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, thank you for letting us come and chat with you this evening about downtown public safety. We're going to discuss, obviously, downtown public safety and provide you all with some information related to what the police department and other organizations are doing in downtown Lynchburg to keep downtown safe. So what I'd like to start with today is that downtown Lynchburg is a success story. A lot of people, businesses, and organizations, city employees alike, have worked for years to make downtown a place where people want to live, work, eat, shop, spend their time and money. The Lynchburg Police Department has been a partner in that work, and we have a responsibility as a police department and all of public safety to help protect what this community has built together. As we go through this presentation this evening, I want to be clear our goal is to work with city staff, with private businesses, with residents, and with visitors to preserve the progress that has been made in our downtown. There are challenges downtown. Although successful, our downtown entertainment district has brought some challenges, particularly late at night. When businesses close late at night and at times hundreds of people move into a relatively small area, the environment can change very quickly. Over the last couple of years, Lynchburg Police Department has seen those crowds concentrate primarily around the 12 and 1300 blocks of Main Street and Commerce Streets. To be clear, the challenge we're talking about tonight, not downtown as a whole. Our philosophy. One of the things I think is important for council and the public to understand is that the mere presence of a crowd does not automatically give a police officer the authority to take enforcement action. People have a right to be in public spaces. They have a right to stand on a sidewalk, gather with other people, or wait for transportation. Our officers must operate within the law. Every decision that we make must balance the rights of the individual with the safety of everyone, that environment, and the law as written. There are times that people may see LPD officers nearby, wonder why they aren't immediately making arrests or clearing an area. The answer is, many times, not always, that their presence alone may deter or de-escalate a situation. Our officers must have a lawful basis for the decisions that they make, and arrests are not always the answer. Again, officers' presence in a particular area often de-escalates a situation. We have, through the use of geographic policing, dedicated officers that are assigned to the downtown entertainment district. The goal there is to build relationships with residents and businesses, to engage with them, to provide education, to be proactive before we have issues and ultimately to partner with and protect the community. So we'll talk about the role of role of public safety. Public safety in downtown is important to the success of our entire community. It supports our businesses, encourages people to visit and spend time downtown, and contributes to the continued growth and investment we have seen over the years. Public safety, however, is not the responsibility of any one group. It takes partnerships between the city, our businesses, residents, visitors, community partners, and the police department. The LPD remains committed to being a part of that partnership, and we will always do our part and work with those who are willing to do so to keep downtown safe, welcoming, and a place where people will want to be. Let's talk a little bit about the reality of operations and maintaining public safety. There's an operational reality that's sometimes difficult to see unless you've been responsible for managing one of these large crowds. An arrest, even for a relatively minor offense, can take multiple officers out of that environment for a significant amount of time. Now we have fewer officers managing the crowd, fewer officers available if a fight breaks out, and fewer officers available to respond to an emergency elsewhere in the city. That does not mean that we ignore criminal behavior. We do not. It means our officers and supervisors have a great, incredible responsibility to continuously assess the totality of the circumstances and make decisions based on what information they have at the time. It may be observing the situation and providing direction. It may be to step in and effect an arrest. Our officers are very well trained, and they are trusted to use their judgment to make the right decision. Please understand that the safest decision is not always the quickest arrest. Brings me something that we at Lynchburg Police Department feel very strongly about, and that's officer safety. Officer safety and public safety are connected. They go hand in hand. If we put our officers in a position where they cannot safely manage the environment around them, we've also reduced their ability to protect everyone else. Our officers need sufficient personnel first. They need good information from our partnerships in the community. They need the appropriate equipment and the flexibility to make sound decisions. When we give them those things, they are in a much better position to protect first themselves and the residents, visitors, employees, and business owners who are in downtown. So a little bit of legal framework I'll go into, and Mr. Friedman, please correct me if I missed something on this. One item I would ask council to take away from this presentation this evening is this. Policing a large late night crowd is dynamic. Our officers must consider what they know at the moment, what legal authority they have, the behavior of the crowd, and the resources available to them, and what effect an enforcement action may have on everyone else present. We trust our officers to do just that, and we expect them to enforce the law. But we also expect them to exercise sound judgment to keep our community safe. Good policing requires both. So, the Code of Virginia, we've heard a lot about loitering laws. This is what is well known as loitering laws, obstructing the free passage of others. And there's a two-step process. There's two parts to that law that our officers are required to observe and or provide guidance on before any action can take place. They must identify that an individual is unnecessarily obstructing the free passage of others and who refuses to stop obstructing or move on when requested to do so. That's the two parts. That can be done by an officer, a business owner, or a security guard. When we look at City Code, Lynchburg City Code 2711, it mimics, for the most part, the state code. Talk a little bit about our shared responsibility. I mentioned it earlier. Our Lynchburg Police Department cannot solve every issue downtown through enforcement, and we shouldn't. We all must work together. Public safety has to be a shared responsibility. The city has a role. The police department has a role. Property owners have a role. And patrons have a role. Our businesses have a role. Tonight with me back here is one of our fire marshals from Lynchburg Fire Department. We've been working with them, Virginia ABC, and our other public safety partners to do the very best we can together to ensure that downtown is safe. In addition to our businesses having a role particular, businesses that attract a large number of patrons late at night have an important part to play in helping us create an orderly transition when those establishments close. Our goal is to work with them so that we can have both a vibrant downtown and a safe downtown. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. What I want our businesses to understand is that we want them to succeed. A thriving downtown benefits this entire community. But with success comes responsibility. When hundreds of patrons leave establishment at approximately the same time, what happens immediately outside those businesses affects more than just that individual establishment. It affects neighboring businesses, residents, visitors, traffic, and the officers responsible for managing the area. That's why we need continued cooperation and communication between the city, our law enforcement partners, property owners, and the businesses themselves. A partnership does not mean an absence of accountability. Where there is criminal conduct and we have the legal authority to act, we will. And where there are recurring problems associated with a particular location, we will work with that business. We will work with Virginia Alcoholic Beverage Control and with other public safety partners to address them. Our objective is not enforcement for enforcement's sake. The objective is to change behavior, to reduce risk, to prevent violence, and most importantly, to keep people safe. We have not simply identified this as a challenge and waited for something to happen. Lynchburg Police Department and many others have committed significant resources to downtown. Lynchburg Police Department has increased staffing during peak periods through mandatory overtime, assigned additional officers to the downtown entertainment district, used directed patrols, worked with our downtown businesses and residents, partnered with the Downtown Lynchburg Association, and coordinated with Virginia ABC and other public safety partners. We've also supported and paid for improved lighting, and we use technologies such as the Hill City Connect program, which is a voluntary camera registration program, because prevention and good investigative tools are both important parts of the solution. Some of our most important work is the work the public may not always see. If lighting discourages someone from committing a crime, if an officer's presence keeps an argument from becoming a fight, or if a conversation and a compromise with a business prevents a problem before closing time, that's where it's at. That's not necessarily a statistic that captures it, but that's exactly the kind of policing we want to be doing crime prevention before it becomes a problem. We want to prevent people from becoming victims in the first place, rather than simply respond after something bad has already happened. So looking forward, a vision. I would caution against allowing any single incident or video clip or even a difficult weekend to define downtown Lynchburg. We need to pay attention to those incidents. We need to learn from them and respond appropriately. But we also have to look at the larger picture. Thousands of people now live, work, dine, attend events, and spend time downtown without becoming victims of crime. Our responsibility is to address the problems that do occur without creating the impression that downtown as a whole is unsafe. Downtown Lynchburg did not become what it is today by accident. It took vision, investment, collaboration, and a whole lot of work. The police department is committed to protecting that progress. We will continue putting resources where they are needed, enforcing the law fairly, working with our businesses and community partners, and adjusting our approach as conditions change. Our goal is straightforward. We want our residents to feel safe downtown. We want our businesses to be successful. We want our visitors to enjoy being here and spending their money. And we want our officers to be able to do their jobs safely and professionally. These goals all support one another, and that's what we are working towards. Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any comments? Mr. Wilder.
Thank you for the presentation. We really appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
We received a lot of things going on downtown that the citizens are concerned about. I'm concerned about as well. And we've been talking about situations downtown. How are we working with some of the property owners, the nightclubs, things of that nature? How are we working with them? And do we train their security guards, or is there a communication thing there to know when something's going on inside of the establishment? How are we communicating together?
Yeah, we've met with many business owners. We have spent time. We have a dedicated, through our geographic policing model, lieutenant that works in the downtown area. That lieutenant and many others have been assigned to go out and work with the business owners, chat with them, provide them information, give them guidance. A lot of information on our website. You can go to lynchburgvapolice.org and review that information as well. We do not train security guards. Security guard training is provided by the Department of Criminal Justice Services. We do have an academy here in Lynchburg. I don't want to speak for them as to what training they do. Thank you for the question.
So if there's a situation that's going on inside, do they contact the police, or do they give you a heads up or something?
Yeah, we would love to know if there's an issue going inside of an establishment. I mean, that's what 911 is for. If there's a problem, please call us. That's how we can be able to respond and be able to address and know and document what the issues are. Is it an issue at the business, or is it an individual at the business that's causing an issue? There are many different ways, bar letters and other things like that we can utilize, tools that are at our disposal to help support our businesses downtown.
I mean, I'm just saying, but are the establishments utilizing that tool to give you a heads up? Are they contacting?
Some businesses do contact us regularly, and others do not.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for the presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
So there have been a lot of concerns over the last few years. I mean, even since before I got on council, but since I've been on council, with dangerous situations that unfortunately turn into shootings. I think there's been at least 3 now, with the most recent one that I can recall in the last 3 years. We had Greenhouse, then was one at Badger, and then the one that just resulted out of the fight from the Trading Post. Correct? Am I wrong? Are there
I believe that's accurate. I don't have all those facts directly in front of me, though. Be glad to get back with you and verify it.
Were there any commonalities between those 3 establishments as far as hours that they serve alcohol or hours they stay open? Do we know? Does anybody know offhand?
I do know that here recently there's only a few businesses that stay open after 12:30 a.m. In downtown Lynchburg. I cannot speak directly to Greenhouse, Dish, Badger, others that previously have been handled or addressed. That's been quite some time ago, and I just don't have that information to be able to speak factually on it tonight.
Chief, do you know? Do you recall?
I do believe that as far as regarding the most recent incident that happened where there was a fight inside an establishment that then continued out into the street and resulted in a shooting, I believe that establishment is the only establishment, I believe, open at 2 a.m. or closes at 2 a.m.
Okay, but still serving alcohol until 2?
Most of the businesses in the downtown entertainment district, varying schedules, but close at 11, close at midnight. So that's part of the crowd concern that we have in that area in particular, is that on weekend nights, if there's already a large crowd there, and then if other locations close, it kind of funnels even a greater number of people down into that concentrated area.
Right. Yeah. It just seems I can't verify either because the two of them are not open anymore. But I was just curious if y'all knew, because that seems to be some of the concerns. Like what I'm reading comments from citizens that are concerned that either live downtown or have left living downtown. It tends to be just the concerns of the fact that very thing that it seems, a group of young people are going from the last place that stopped serving at midnight and then going to the next place that's still open. And that, we always have heard there's nothing good happens after midnight. That's what Mom always said. And it seems to be unfortunately true. And not that we want to ruin things for the young people, but when I see comments from people saying like, I just moved downtown and I'm going to leave because of these things happening, or, young families are moving downtown. They love the what's going on there. And it's concerning when you see people and investors that have invested tons of money in these living spaces. And now we're bringing young, professionals downtown, young families to enjoy that space like other cities. And then the fears of these kind of things happening. So are there any things that other localities do to address these issues, Captain Hinckley, that might work to help curb some of these problems?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking me that. I actually have done a lot of research as to other localities in Virginia, whether or not they're the same size or not. I was able to identify 4, and I've talked to folks at each of these agencies so far. They've taken a lot of different approaches to address public safety concerns. I will just say this: it should be a one city, one team approach, including the appropriate city departments, LPD, LFD, Assessor's Office, Community Development, DLA, downtown business owners, investors, and residents. The 4 localities that I identified that have measures in place are Virginia Beach, Richmond, Norfolk, and Arlington County. Be happy to give you some more information related to those. But what I could tell you is that there are pieces from each of these approaches that are maybe worth looking at or considering at a later future date discussion meeting to be able to consider. Several of them utilize some type of special exemption permit or conditional use permit for nightclubs or things like that after a certain time at night. Be happy to provide more information related to that. I don't want to get into all the weeds.
Right.
I got a lot of information on it, but I don't want to spend all night here on this specific.
Just so putting restrictions or CUPs on operating hours, or what is do you know, elaborate a little bit?
Yeah. So just as an example, I've actually got one example that I printed out. It's something that's getting ready to go before another council. And this is where a business owner has to actually go before, I believe, council for a public hearing, because their establishment after midnight in a particular district portion of the city becomes what's considered a nightclub after midnight. And so while we still want people to be able to operate and be able to do things well, and be able to do things right, but that may be something that what they use it for is to say, from this point moving forward into the early morning hours, we have conditions that supersede or go farther than Virginia code. Code of Virginia allows, for example, alcohol sales till 2 a.m. And so if the city chose at some point to consider restricting that in some way through a conditional use permit, because we want to have a vibrant downtown, right? We want these establishments to be able to exist. We just want to be able to do it right. And they tie a lot of different conditions to that. They also, some of them in the other areas, again, happy to provide a whole lot more information at another meeting without going into all the weeds, but they have a whole plan in place talks about security, talks about lighting, talks about partnering, talks about who's in the room to develop and agree to the plan before it can go to a meeting for discussion.
Thank you. I just
Yes, ma'am.
feel like we've seen the writing on the wall in certain situations, and it was just a matter of time before, unfortunately, the worst case. I'm so thankful that this last event did not take a life, but we just don't want to see those things risk or increase, or again, all the work that's been done downtown then, go to pot because people are not, because of things that could be preventable in some cases. So that's why I'm asking. I'm fine talking about it another time, but I was just curious if you had that. So, okay.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, Captain Hinckley. Appreciate that. And I guess I've got a couple questions that I wrote down, but I'm going to piggyback on what we were just talking about with the zoning thing. It would be interesting to see, because I'm sure there's other localities that already have some sort of nightclub zoning ordinance, right? I would like to see how their, crime stacks up to what we're experiencing here in Lynchburg, because one of the concerns and fears that I have, if we were to kind of create a nightclub district and introduce something into our zoning code that permits nightclubs through a nightclub district, so to speak, that then we would have a district of nothing but nightclubs. And I don't know if that's really something we want in Lynchburg. I don't know if that's something that aligns with what I would see as our community, so to speak. So that's just one concern that I have. But there was something that stuck out to me in your presentation that I think, two things actually, that are really top concerns of mine. How much mandatory overtime are you guys doing with LPD?
So I can pull up the numbers if you want them right now, or I can provide them to you after.
I'd love to have them right now if you can pull them right up, because
just a minute.
That is something that's a super serious concern of mine, because I don't want to see our officers get burnt out.
Agreed.
And I think that's.
I can't pull them up because now I'm not on Wi-Fi and my phone is behind me, because I didn't want to interrupt my presentation, sir.
But
if you don't mind, I'll be happy to provide you that information after this meeting.
I'd love to have that information.
I believe it's around $25,000 last summer.
25,000 hours.
$25,000 last summer, specific to Friday and Saturday nights, and between the hours of, I'll just say between 8 p.m. and 3 a.m. I'd have to get you the exact specifics on it, but
so I think the figure, sir, that
Sure.
he's talking about is this right here, I believe.
Yep, you got
So
it.
summer and fall of 2025. On the overtime hours, the total cost was $24,718. So, and that's not just out in the downtown area. That was actually in the 1,200 blocks and 1,300 blocks of Main Street, between 12th and 13th Street, Main Street to Commerce Street, because that's where we were experiencing the large crowds. And so that was mandatory overtime. And there's other proactive measures that we've taken. The additional lighting you probably noticed in those areas.
I don't go out there.
Okay.
Well, there's additional lighting
so
that's on portable generators, portable lighting. And there's a number of those that was not budgeted in our budget, but we took those measures also to just increase the lighting, to try and increase safety down in the areas there. And that was a cost not only to us, but to Public Works. Public Works comes out every week and fills those generators up to be able to run those. And so that was total cost between May 1st of 2025 and June of this year, $16,543. So one, I want to thank Public Works for partnering with us on that. But yeah, so I also want to make sure that, when we say downtown, that downtown is safe, but we don't want to lose that and it become a perception that it's not safe. I mean, I believe Vice Mayor Deemer in the previous discussion, he talked about how years ago downtown was perceived as somewhere you didn't go after dark. And there's been too much work, too much success by various partners that Captain Hinckley listed for us to lose that and decline.
Sure, and you know, and I'd be really interested in getting the hours. You know, I get having the dollars, but the hours, because I want to see what the actual, the manpower impact is. What's that demand that you guys are? You know, we have to make people go above and beyond to serve, and I just want to make sure that the officers understand that we appreciate that, right? That because I know what it's like to work a mandatory overtime shift. It usually hits you when you least want it, and it gets in the way of everything else at home and family and all of that. So I appreciate that sacrifice.
596 hours.
Yeah, that's a lot for just Friday and Saturday nights, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot. So I appreciate that, and appreciate the work you guys are doing putting the lighting down there. And I think kind of particularly with what you mentioned about, Vice Mayor Deemer's comments, been here for 30 years. I've seen the cycle come and go downtown. And I would imagine that if you looked at the number of people living downtown today and the people that are visiting downtown today, it's really not dangerous compared to what it was previously. I think that, when we had probably the same number of instances of crime in downtown in previous decades, that there was far less people living down there. There was far less people down there doing business. So I think that we just need to make sure that that information's out there. But back to that mandatory overtime question, that leads me to something else, because I think you mentioned fewer officers in your presentation. How many hard vacancies do we have right now in the Lynchburg Police Department?
I believe the hard vacancies are at 22.
22
right now.
How has that changed in the last year? Do we know? Is it higher, the same, or lower?
I can't speak to it, but other than to say, I would say it's maybe roughly the same. We had gotten to 15 hard vacancies in the last few months, but then it's ticked back up with, we've had a couple of retirements and a couple of officers originally from out of state who have relocated back home to their home state. And so it's ticked back up.
Okay. Yeah, I really, we need to figure out what we need to do to close the gap on those hard vacancies. I don't know what it's going to take, but when you've got fewer officers and then we have these situations, and then, it all can start to compound, and once it starts, becoming a problem, we don't want it to become a problem that's too big for us to address down the road. So, when we're hitting mandatory overtime on the weekends now, that's a problem. I didn't know until just now that you guys were actually having an issue with that. So I'm thankful for that presentation, that information. And when you guys are 22 hard vacancies, that's like 10% of the workforce, isn't it?
It's just a significant number.
Yeah, it's 10% of the workforce. So we got to figure out what we got to do to solve that problem, because we need to make sure that we've got those positions filled so that you have the law enforcement manpower you need to keep our citizens safe. But thank you.
Sweet. Sorry. Appreciate the comments, Councilman Mischens. I think I 100% agree, and I think we're going to have to go back to doing like we did our first budget on council and increasing our budget towards LPD, because I believe we had increased the starting salary for officers to make ourselves more competitive, and now I'm not sure we're as competitive anymore because all the other localities have increased. Is that correct? So we've got to do what it takes to recruit. We really had a really solid public safety budget that first year. We had the take-home car incentive program, which we don't do right now. We really amped things up, and I think we need to. We're going to have to just do it again. Unfortunately, that's just the reality in these areas with the fire as well. In order to get really good talent, you're just going to have to put the money behind you to do that. And that helps solve the problem of the concern of overtime, but also those vacancies. I did want to ask, I wanted to mention, I know Councilman Mischens said he hadn't been downtown in the middle of the night recently, but I remember when we had midnight basketball and I came out after we closed up, and that was like 12:30. And I drove down and was past Badger and Dish at the time. And I was shocked. First, I saw the lights that that Public Works has provided, which was amazing. But what was horrifying was that there were hundreds of people in the middle of the street. And I couldn't get through. And I was like, where is this coming from? Because I'd never been down there during that time. But it was shocking to see how many people were there and the fact that you could not move. I mean, people were just standing there. And that was scary and concerning, too, because, you're trying to get your car by. You don't know where people are coming from. They're coming from across the street to the parking lots. So I can only imagine with your officers crowd control and just concerning where those things can go. And we ultimately know what happened, not long after that, which was a horrific tragedy. So, as I said, we see the writing on the wall in certain cases, and we can see these commonalities. And again, I'm thankful we don't have a crime problem downtown truly. But some cases, now that we've had enough of them and you kind of see what they're connected to, I think there is something that needs to be done, because I think that is the contributor, what's in common, as far as maybe the hours we're serving alcohol, not restricting operating time necessarily, but maybe, and I don't like the idea of a nightclub district either, but I think we have to consider things, because it doesn't seem to be coming, from all the other, in my opinion, we have plenty of other establishments that serve alcohol and stop serving at midnight that I don't hear about these same situations happening. Not frequently anyway. So unless I'm just not hearing about it. So thank you. It's definitely a lot to think about.
Thank you. Chief, is there any youth gang involvement in the gang fightings?
I'm not aware of any kind of gang nexus with this, what we're talking about here. Certainly something that I could look further into, but I don't believe so.
Okay. Mr. Dima.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief Owers and Captain Hinckley. I really appreciate the information. I agree with Ms. Reed that we don't have a real serious crime problem downtown Lynchburg. I've enjoyed seeing the growth. I've enjoyed visiting the facilities. I don't do it as much in recent years, but as a single man back in the day, I actually, and it hadn't been that long ago, I really enjoyed a lot of the facilities that I could visit down there. Never had any problems. And I want to encourage the people in Ward 3 that I represent that aren't necessarily the biggest participants in downtown restaurants and other things, that they need to get down there and visit those facilities and eat there and learn what's available, because it is not the city I grew up in down there. It has changed significantly in really good ways. And I appreciate the very specific way you're responding to some of the very specific problems that we're having. That's what it takes, that geo-policing, the being proactive, trying to get sufficient personnel. I hear you on that. Proper equipment. I think I need more information on that, what maybe we can do for you there. I think the citizens want to be part of the solution, so make sure they're always involved. They may be just walking across the street when we're trying to get through, but they need to follow the jaywalking rules and not walk in the middle of the block. And some basic common sense and courtesy go a long way. But for the most part, the citizens of Lynchburg, I would encourage the folks of Ward 3 to get down there, get some dinner, visit the art community that's really growing well. And I use a lot of those backdrops for photography shoots, and it's a real asset to our city what we have down there. In your efforts to protect it, keep it safe, and give it the great reputation that it really enjoys with most people is not lost on me. I know that it's critical, and I thank you, and please relay that thanks to all your men and women of the LPD that I know their hard work is paying off.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Wilder.
Just real quick, I'm just wondering also, what role does the Downtown Business Association play in this? Whether it's holding a round table with downtown businesses, especially those clubs or whatever, with the police department, and just seeing how we can brainstorm together to make downtown more safer, just as an act of how they can participate in this as well. So make sure we're hearing their concerns, that they hear our concerns of the police department, and we want you to have a good time in the next evening downtown. But what the business establishments can do to make sure they are safer, make sure they're listening to those ideas. And also, on a personal, I hear more about those what the other cities are doing, just so we can send some of that information to us or to me, whatever. I just think it'd be nice, it'd be great to hear what other localities are doing, just so we can think about other things. Thank you. I'm sorry.
I want to echo comments. But in addition to that, and this is actually probably a question for Winter, Greg, and I recognize that this is not a fix-all in this particular situation, but I would like to know kind of where we're at on the question of the downtown business district, or the DID. It was the downtown improvement district. And the reason I bring that up is I've lived in Lynchburg's downtown, but I've also lived in downtown San Diego, and I lived in a DID, a downtown improvement district, and I lived outside of a DID, a downtown improvement district in downtown San Diego, and the safety and the perception of safety were vastly different. And so I'm just kind of curious where we're at on that process and discussion. And then I, again, want to echo Vice Mayor Deemer's comments of appreciation. So thank you. I mean, we can put it on a work session or whatever, but I just want to raise that in the context of.
Yeah, I think that would be the next step. I think where we left it is if there was an interest from council in pursuing this further, we'd bring it back for further discussion at a work session. So we can certainly make that happen.
I would welcome that. So I'll make that as a request. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Next item, number 10, block safety technology. Chief Edwards. Thank you, Brother Higley. Yes, sir.
So I'm just looking at time, and we have a presentation all queued up and ready to go, and we're ready to give it. I know that there were resolutions that were positioned by council members, so I didn't know whether or not you wanted to invert the two or leave it as it is with the presentation. I'm just looking for what council would like to do.
Let's do the presentation. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I mean, if it's acceptable to do so, I believe that the meeting agenda is rather light, except for public comment tonight. I wouldn't have any issue with discussing the resolutions at the meeting after this presentation, if that's what council wanted to do. I think that would be one way to, kind of separate it. But
Is that something council want to do?
Just a comment. I want to get more information before any decision of council. That's my general idea. So I want to make sure we get the one before the others.
I believe our chief and the captain's going to give us more information.
Exactly.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Ferrari.
My recommendation would be to, and I mean this with humility. I know this resolution, this presentation probably took time to put together. I would advise to follow our rules of procedure. I would have us have our review and discussion of the resolutions. I would recommend that we have this presentation be given on the 8th ahead of our votes on whichever resolution may or may not get adopted on the 8th. And that actually keeps us on schedule and affords us the ability to fully review these at a work session, still be informed of the presentation, have the discussion, be educated as the vice mayor has pointed out. That would be my recommendation.
Mr. Wilder.
Yes, good question. How long is your presentation?
It's about 28 slides. I can move quickly.
Ms. Timmer.
I understand the desire as far as the rule of procedure, so I'm going to ultimately defer to those who have resolutions on the table, but I personally would welcome the presentation sooner than later because I'm in a gathering information phase. So that's my.
My only thought is, Mayor, we're not voting on anything tonight.
Right.
So the concept I laid out keeps us on schedule, affords everyone to have the presentation given ahead of any vote. That's all.
Mr. Mission.
And I think that, and I appreciate all the comments. I think that we need to get the presentation. They've worked hard to put this together. I don't know what our police department's going to tell us. I would like to hear it. there may be things in there that change my mind on some issues. And I think that getting their information first is important. I do think I see the concerns, or could see the concerns about potentially moving the discussion of the resolutions to the meeting. The intent for that would not be to try to vote on them tonight. The intent for that would be to just present them and discuss them. And I'm willing to, do whatever we need to do to make sure that we're not actually voting on anything tonight as far as those resolutions go. But if we're getting close on time and people need a 15, 20-minute break between the work session and the meeting, I've got no problem with putting that discussion or presentation of those resolutions to the meeting, but then understanding that they would come back as agenda items in September for the actual vote, not tonight in the meeting, if that makes sense.
Mr. Ferrari.
I'll be a little more candid. I asked for a resolution to be considered on this topic in July. I provided feedback to the city attorney for the review of this resolution. Today's the day it should be considered at the work session. And given council's track record of trying to consider things at a 7 p.m., I think we should review the resolutions, and then we should turn around and have this presentation be given at 4 o'clock on the 8th so that everyone has the same information. If we put this on the 7 o'clock, there's no time limit. This is supposed to be a clean question, answer, move on and be done. At 7 p.m., that thing can just go on and on and on. And that's not appropriate. It's not appropriate to staff. It's not appropriate to the public. So I in the past, my colleagues have long argued that when you've requested an item, it needs to be reviewed in the proper order, and this would be the proper order. And I would request that same courtesy today.
Ms. Timmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I could be totally off with this, Mr. Feraldi, but the main concern seemed to be the time frame. I would be happy to put a time limit on it. I don't want to get this presentation and vote that night and have new information that I need to go and research and verify. I would really welcome having this presentation today. And that's not to defer Mr. Feraldi's item. I'm totally fine if it continues over in general business, and if he wants to put forward a time constraint that we all honor and recognize in the context of that discussion, that's great too. I don't really have comments that I'm going to be offering today because I've promised to have conversations with certain constituents in advance of a public declaration or vote. So I'm not going to be speaking in that regard at all this evening.
Ms. Ferrari.
I'd be fine compromising if we can do the presentation this evening to put that extra emphasis on when the agenda is completed. Have the presentation at 7 o'clock, review these, shouldn't be out of here by 6:30. That'd be a healthy compromise.
I'm okay with either order. I just want to make sure that we don't miss the presentation tonight.
Do we have to vote to change the agenda to do either the presentation or the resolutions? Is that not correct, Mr. Parliamentarian?
So what you would do is you would add just for a presentation or discussion.
Could we
remember
put a time limit on it in that?
You can, of course.
Okay.
So remember that rule about amending the agenda is about final action. So you
Right.
can do things that would permit you to carry over or just hear discussions or presentations.
So I'd just like to prioritize the presentation so we have the information and then the resolutions. Makes logical sense to me.
You prepare to do your presentation.
Yes, sir.
And you can do it in the next 35 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Let's go.
So can I get clarity on what we're doing at 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock. She's gonna make. They're gonna make the presentation, and we're gonna do according to what you say. On the 8th, we'll come back and make decisions.
When are we reviewing the resolutions? Now or at 7 o'clock?
We can do that at 7 o'clock. But right now, presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. I appreciate it. All right, this presentation is specifically geared to talk about the accountability and oversight that the LPD as well as the law affords us in FLOC. Privacy safeguards adopted by the LPD to govern its use of flock technology will be touched on. This is important because it is going to provide education on how the technology is authorized, accessed, monitored, and used in accordance with law and departmental policy. Relevant to this presentation, LPD has 3 principles of public safety. Everyone in our community has a right to feel safe. LPD employees receive ongoing training and support to maintain professional and accountable public safety services for our community. LPD will use all available tools to keep our community safe. We understand the importance of privacy and security for our community. Flock technology does not replace traditional police work. It is an investigative tool that is used to support, not replace, lawful police investigations. We implement specific controls and policies to ensure legal use and prevent inappropriate use or access. Every technology system governed by the LPD is accompanied by clear policies, meaningful oversight, documented use, and consequences for misuse. Oops. All right. How LPD uses Flock. On the left here, what you can see is a screenshot of what an officer or a certified employee would see once they first open the system. A certified employee searches the Flock database after a crime has been committed or during an investigation relative to public safety. Each search requires the following information: investigative purpose or offense type, case number or call for service number, and the reason for the search. This requirement complies with the FBI Criminal Justice Information Services, also known as CJIS, requirements, as well as Virginia state law. Searches return visible information regarding license plate numbers and vehicle characteristics. This information is then verified with Virginia DMV records. That is an actual photo of what is actually returned in the system. It's a static photo of a license plate as well as the exterior of the vehicle. Access to Flock is strictly limited to legitimate law enforcement and public safety purposes, such as investigations or complaint inquiries. We provide training to all employees who will have access to the database. This training must be completed prior to them accessing and using Flock data. All users must complete CJIS-compliant multi-factor authentication to enter the database. This ensures authorized entry and verifies the identity of each user. As you can see here, we have an organizational audit that's built into the program. The Flock database complies with CJIS, Criminal Justice Information Systems requirements with the use of multi-factor authentication, creation of usage logs, and allowance of organizational audits. CJIS requirements are defined by federal law and govern all police database systems. Here you can see a comparison, or what we have listed here. On the left are the CJIS requirements. These were just recently updated this year. Access control, multi-factor authentication, encryption, personnel security, auditing and accountability, physical and media security. And then on the right, you have the LPD directive, PD 25712, which governs equipment operation, equipment maintenance, data recording, security, storage retention, and access guidelines. Flock security controls. Data is encrypted at all times, while temporarily stored on the devices, while it's in transit to the cloud, while it's at rest in the cloud, and during backups. Flock uses AWS or Amazon Web Services GovCloud. This is only accessible under U.S. residency. It is CJIS certified. Restrictions on who can administer the cloud infrastructure are also in place. Multi-factor authentication, audit trails. LPD controls who we share with in accordance with applicable state law and LPD policies. Only approved users with role-based access set by us are allowed into the system. Flock is reviewed against SOC 2 Type 2 and ISO 27001 standards. As you can see, got a definition of each of those. The first one, independent audit, evaluating how well a service organization manages customer data over a specified period. an ISO top global standard for information security. This helps a business build an information security management system to keep data safe. Apologies. Organizational audit trails are conducted by LPD supervisors at least every 30 days. Audits are checked to ensure authorized search criteria. Information in the organizational audit includes log searches by user, date, and timestamps of searches and the purpose for the search. The audits confirm compliance with policy and Virginia law. And we provide monthly reporting to the state police, which is publicly available on Flock Safety Lynchburg, Virginia PD Transparency Portal. You can get to that through our webpage. Flock is important to keep our community safe. According to crimegrade.org, the annual cost of crime in Lynchburg in 2025 was estimated at over $55 million. That equals $580 per resident and $1,358 per household. LPD will use all available tools to keep our community safe. Flock is just one of those tools available to law enforcement to identify persons traveling public roads who may be involved in a crime. To date, we have confirmed over 100 significant cases that have been cleared with the use of Flock. In 2024, Police One actually reported, quote, the addition of one Flock LPR camera per sworn officer is associated with a 9.1% increase in the clearance rate of crimes. Here's a map overview of all of the Flock camera locations. All of the red circles that have a camera inside of them are LPD-owned Flock fixed cameras. You can see that they are red because they are offline. If they were online, they would be green. These locations were selected using traffic volume data, crash data, and geographical boundaries of the city of Lynchburg. We often know that people travel from outside of our jurisdiction, enter the city, commit crimes, and then leave. Here's another view of the list of where the cameras are actually located. All of these locations are main intersections of the city, as well as boundaries. Just a couple of specific case law. I'll go through these quickly. In 1983, United States versus Knott's, law enforcement was investigating people suspected of purchasing chemicals used to manufacture illegal drugs. With the seller's consent, officers placed a small electronic beeper tracking device inside of a 5-gallon container of chloroform. The container was placed in a vehicle. Officers followed it using a combination of visual surveillance and the beeper signal. Officers lost sight of the vehicle, but used the beeper to determine that it had arrived at a cabin in Wisconsin, owned by Knott's. Police obtained a search warrant for the cabin and discovered an illegal drug laboratory. Knott's challenged, arguing that the warrantless monitoring of the beeper violated the Fourth Amendment. Supreme Court ruled against Knott's. Court held that monitoring the beeper under these circumstances was not a Fourth Amendment search because it essentially allowed police to do electronically what they could lawfully have done visually, which is follow the vehicle as it traveled on public roads. Reasoning was that someone driving on a public street exposes certain information to anyone who happens to be watching. Examples: roads traveled, direction of travel, stops made, and where the vehicle goes after leaving the public roadway. Court stated that police were not constitutionally prohibited from enhancing their ability to observe public activity through technology when the technology revealed information that could otherwise have been observed from public locations. Most recent case, Virginia Robinson v. Commonwealth, decided this year. Virginia Court of Appeals made the decision April 7th, 2026. Norfolk had 172 Flock cameras at intersections and public roadways. Police were investigating a series of burglaries, and surveillance footage showed a white BMW SUV associated with the crimes. A detective searched Flock for a white BMW SUV in relevant areas and timeframes and ultimately identified Robinson's vehicle, in part because it had distinctive black rims. Robinson argued that police had obtained historical location and movement information about his vehicle without a warrant, violating the Fourth Amendment. Court of Appeals affirmed the conviction and rejected Robinson's Fourth Amendment argument. Because Flock photographed Robinson's license plate and the exterior of his vehicle while he traveled on public roads, police were not required by the Fourth Amendment to obtain a warrant before accessing the Flock system. Robinson argued that Flock should be treated like historical cell phone location information, which is an issue in Carpenter v. United States. The Court of Appeals disagreed and found Norfolk's Flock system was not near perfect surveillance. Unlike cell site location information, Flock did not continuously follow Robinson wherever he went. It produced intermittent photographs when his vehicle passed specific cameras on public roads. Flock photographed vehicles, not people. Carpenter is referenced on the previous slide. This is a landmark Fourth Amendment case concerning historical cell phone location information without a warrant. During a robbery investigation, detectives obtained cell site location information, CSLI, from wireless carriers through court orders under the Stored Communications Act rather than a search warrant based on probable cause. 12,898 location points covering 127 days were used to place Carpenter's cell phone near several robbery locations. Carpenter argued that obtaining this extensive history of his physical movements without a warrant violated the Fourth Amendment. In a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court agreed with Carpenter. The court held that government acquisition of historical CSLI constitutes a Fourth Amendment search, and the government generally must obtain a warrant supported by probable cause to acquire it. There are substantial differences between CSLI and a fixed ALPR network. Cell phones enter homes, cell phones enter doctor's offices, vehicles don't. Another one that has been called in question, or at least tried to form a parallel with Flock, is Chattree v. United States. During the investigation of a robbery at a credit union in Midlothian, Virginia, detectives obtained a geofence search warrant requiring Google to identify devices that had been within a 150-meter radius of the credit union around the time of the robbery. Detectives did not know the robber's identity at the time of the search warrant. They used the return data to narrow down the devices, and Google disclosed identifying information that was included in the original geofence search warrant. The court did not hold that geofence warrants are unconstitutional. They only answered whether a search occurred. The Supreme Court ruled that obtaining an individual's cell phone location information through a geofence warrant does constitute a Fourth Amendment search. Whether the warrant itself was constitutionally adequate remains to be decided, as it's been remanded to a lower court. Some misinformation out there. As you can see on the left, the highlighted yellow, mass surveillance casts an enormous net over innocent people in hopes of catching a few fish. ALPR gives law enforcement a controlled and accountable way to locate relevant evidence after a legitimate public safety need has been established. This includes reported crimes, missing persons, or credible public safety threats. A vehicle tag appearing in the system does not make its driver a suspect, nor does it trigger enforcement action. Another local headline: police to possibly add 100 more Flock cameras across the city of Lynchburg. Lynchburg Police Department, our response is that we operate with 15 fixed Flock ALPR cameras. There have been no requests to purchase additional Flock cameras. Some common concerns from our community. Quote, the information automatically goes into a nationwide database. LPD's response is Virginia law prohibits disseminating ALPR data into another state, federal, private, or commercial database. LPD is compliant with this law and does not share local data in a nationwide database. Sharing with another law enforcement agency requires authorized investigative purposes, and the receiving agency must comply with the same requirements. Next, federal agencies have unlimited access. We do not release local data to federal agencies without express investigative purposes. There is no unrestricted federal backdoor under Virginia law. Release of data must fall within an authorized law enforcement purpose, a court order, subpoena, warrant, or another specifically permitted circumstance, and sharing must be recorded. Next, the cameras automatically issue speeding or traffic tickets. LPD Flock ALPR cameras do not issue speeding or traffic tickets. Information regarding driver behavior is not captured, meaning they do not measure speed or errors in driving. A camera hit automatically causes a traffic stop. Flock camera information does not dictate officer behavior. LPD officers are required to comply with Virginia law, which expressly states that an ALPR notification by itself does not constitute reasonable suspicion. LPD officers are required to verify the plate or vehicle characteristics or develop independent reasonable suspicion. There are no consequences for misuse. LPD complies with Virginia law regarding willful, unauthorized access, searching, sharing, or dissemination of protected information. A violation of this statute is a Class 1 misdemeanor under Virginia law. Next concern, technology replaces police investigation. As noted prior, LPD uses ALPR information as one of many investigative resources to discover information about a committed crime. ALPR information is corroborated with other evidence. It alone does not establish who was driving, whether a crime occurred, or whether an arrest is justified. Next concern, if most vehicles photographed are innocent, the system is being misused. Flock cameras observe traffic, just as officers and conventional cameras do. The Flock system is designed to support officer observations and investigative research for criminal incidents. And lastly, Flock has been declared unconstitutional. As noted in Robinson v. Commonwealth 2026, the Court of Appeals of Virginia confirmed that Flock's systems did not violate the Fourth Amendment. The court stated that the system captured images and data of vehicles traveling on public roads, and the system does not equal continuous, comprehensive surveillance.
So with that, on August 19th, I decided to have a temporary pause on the 15 fixed cameras. And how I arrived at that decision was, we had the previous work session where we discussed Flock cameras. Since then, there's been a lot of public comment and debate about this, not just here in our community, but across the nation. And the more I spoke with members of the community, while I can tell you that in all of my conversations with members of the Lynchburg community, I never received any feedback from them as far as wanting us to get rid of Flock. Now, what I heard from the public was that they had trust and confidence in the LPD's use of Flock cameras. I did hear some concerns regarding Flock, the company itself, and privacy concerns with that. So as that went along, and then really it was, I guess, during National Night Out, which was earlier, National Night Out Against Crime earlier this month, just in conversations with the public, I started to think more about this pause. And so we decided to make the pause, and that way, hopefully during this pause, what it can allow us to do is we can identify an independent vendor to conduct an audit of our system that can look into our policies, our practices, our training, our access, our use of the system, and provide feedback not only to us, but we could actually have that company come back before council and report the results of that audit. In my decision to do this pause, I knew also that it wasn't going to be just simply contact Flock and disable it, because at that point in the media, social media, I was hearing a lot about people seeing the cameras and taking notice of the cameras more than they had been previously. So we wanted to give an actual visual. So in addition to disabling the 15 Flock cameras, we also asked Public Works to assist us, and appreciate Public Works in their assistance with that of actually physically covering the cameras. So again, my staff will work with city staff to identify a vendor capable of providing this audit and providing that to council. I'm confident that they're going to come back with a positive report that I absolutely, I'm sure, will find some areas of improvement for us, and that's okay too. And we'll continue to listen to our community and go forward with this.
Ms. Reed.
Thank you. I have a, can you go back to the slide that has the misinformation piece? One more. Okay.
This one?
Right. And thank you. I'm just trying to, I want to make sure I read that one correct. And Chief, just to clarify, because you did mention in your presentation that no one has requested 100 additional cameras. No one's requested, like ordered them. Like no one. So I know, Chief, that there was a comment that you made at some point about 100 cameras. So just to clarify that, can you just say what you said versus what people may think you said?
Yeah, if I recall that, I believe Councilmember Timmer asked as far as how many cameras we would be looking at, and I believe I responded with something about that we could certainly conduct a study, but that in speaking with my investigative staff, they see the need for 100 to 150 additional cameras.
Okay, so it was the need for, but not that you were requesting them, and not that they had been.
And I may have even said that they have asked for 100 to 150 cameras. But what I will say is that I have no plans of us having 100 to 150 cameras in the city. I realize this is a great tool. And I apologize, I didn't introduce Captain Lisa Singleton at the very beginning of the presentation. Thank you, Lisa, for the presentation. This, as she is presented in here, is a great tool, but it is just a tool overall in us preventing crime, deterring crime when crime occurs, being able to investigate crime. We've had a lot of successes with it that I went over last time, over 100 here, Lynchburg successes. So if we were to say there's two extremes, let's say, there's one extreme is 0 cameras, get rid of the contract. On the other extreme is chief of police says 100 to 150 cameras. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that's the extremes. What I hope, and I hope through this pause and through the audit, is we're able to come together, have a conversation on where we can arrive at a consensus on this, because I think most of you realize that the great tool that this is for law enforcement. We also realize that people don't want to see cameras at every intersection, flock cameras in particular at every intersection. So what is that number? Right now we're at 15. We have no plans for a 16th camera. I would like, with this company that we identified to conduct this audit, to also maybe take a look across the nation at a peer city as Lynchburg, similar in population, similar in size, and what that average is. What's that number? You know, I don't know. So, and maybe that could help us to be able to keep this this tool, as well as realize you can argue whether it's privacy concerns or not. We'll just assume people don't like to see them on the roadways, and it's a privacy concern. But there still should be a way that we can come together and arrive at a consensus on this debate.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Ferrari.
Thank you, and thank you both. I know it's been a lot, and there's a lot I'm going to be saying on this, and just for time considerations, please don't take the few questions I had for you as skirting around my appreciation for what you've done thus far on this topic. One of the questions I had was about the Raven technology, the gunshot detection technology. You've been very specific that the cameras are not being used. Can you talk to me about how those listening devices are still active? Are we still using them? Are they connected to the cameras and only can be accessed with them? Just briefly, can you explain where we're at?
The gunshot detection equipment is still active. And I can tell you the feedback that I have received from members of the community, specifically in the downtown area where where this technology is located. They don't want to see this technology go away. In fact, I have had numerous citizens come to me and ask that, not sure what's going to happen with the camera, but as far as the audio detection equipment, they want it to stay.
And how
because
many?
they feel safer with that.
Sure. How many of those do we have?
I believe it's 55 devices in order to have a approximate 1 square mile coverage.
It's 54. It's a weird number, right? 54. Just when we're talking about when they're active, I would like to clarify that those units actually are dormant until a noise that meets the decibel amount threshold activates them. So they are not continuously recording. They remain dormant until a loud noise, and I can get the decibel amount from Flock, but it has to be a very loud noise for them to activate, and that is when they start recording, and then they turn back off.
I have a question about the third-party audit and a timeline. So I'm splitting here slightly, but can you give me an idea about how long you think it would take for this audit to complete?
I mean, it would take several weeks. And one thing that we also need to look into as far as how we arrive at being able to give that third-party company access to this data, because again, Virginia is one of the more restrictive states in the country regarding access to this data. So we have state law, we have policy, but I would say I'm not going to be able to give you a timeline as far as them conducting that audit, other than we have already narrowed that search down to potentially National Policing Institute, NPI, and we've already started discussing with them the possibility of this. But it would take several weeks, and then for them to come back and report to council.
Okay. With that in mind, and I'm just doing my best. I wish I had more time to articulate some of these things, but it was the will of council to choose this path. For my resolution, I would like to add a timeline for when it's council's expectation to be completed. And that's the purpose of the question. My thoughts were end of November. That way it gives it 30 days to be able to review the audit. And then second to that, if we can't, because I realize that's a time crunch, to have the resolution that I have put forward to you, Matt, is to say if the audit can't be completed, that we would still review the contract during that month. So if they can't get it to us by the end of November, we would consider it, because I realize that this is an issue we don't want sitting out there forever. Candidly, I think we should be either using. I don't think we should be using the full service of the gunshot detection system. Also, I'm contemplating adding that to the resolution, but that might be too quick, too much for the purpose of this conversation right now. And I realize our time is limited, so I'll be bringing that back up this evening. I think those are the most pressing questions I had. I appreciate you both, and I look forward to commending you in proper order later. Thank you.
Jacqueline.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much for the presentation. I really appreciate it. One of the questions of mine that you answered in the presentation had to do with the Amazon World Services, or the servers, and how that operates, and the certification with that, because that was a missing piece that had not been in the prior presentation. So I appreciate your inclusion of that. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not formally taking a stance as far as a public stance at this point, because I've committed to receive some feedback. But I want to go back, because I did ask the question, and there's apparently been confusion because I haven't publicly made any comments in that regard. But I think it had to do with a grant request, that there was a grant request that would come before council. I could be wrong, but for about 100 cameras. And I think that was not it. Okay.
Yeah, there's never been a grant request for any of the cameras.
Okay, because there was some request for 100, but I haven't publicly spoken to that. There was a request component. So that was the part where I had confusion or questions there.
No, and And I can tell you, we don't have money in our budget right now for that number of cameras. And there's no grant that we have brought forward for requesting
That's
additional
resourceful.
cameras.
I'll go check it out, but I appreciate the clarification there. Thank you.
Mr. Wilder. Thank you for the information. I really appreciate it. And also dispelling some of there's so much things that are out there right now. So you got to distinguish what's real, what's not. So I really appreciate that. And I believe in supporting our police department. We always come to solving crimes, and we still have several crimes that are still out there, several murders that are still out there. And we have to have some tools that we can provide to our police department so we can solve these crimes. And I also want to make sure people feel safe in the community. Like with the gunshot situation, with the measures that, if you're living in the community, especially in the area where I live in, you always hear, you got to think whether it's a gunshot, whether it's a backfire, so those kind of detection systems are, important. And I appreciate those. So when you do have something in the area, we can kind of see what's happening and be on the spot to kind of see if the police are needed in the area. So I think those kind of tools are important in our community. So I really appreciate those. I do have concern about the data security. So I think the audit at least will address that, so everybody feels safe that their data is secure. And also to hear information about it's not recording everything, that it's this the information you shared. I think that was important as an eye-opening. I'm glad our community can hear those things so they can feel a little safer. But there's always the way data is now and security is now. We always got to review those things. Jubilee just did some expansion, and somehow something got hacked where we got fake requests to send invoices to the city. And I've talked about that, but it was weird. So everything kind of breaks in sometimes. So we do have to have those measures that we're constantly monitoring those devices that are here now. But I do want to support our police department, and I trust you in monitoring this information. And also, as we do the audit, to see if there's been any breaches of trust or breaches of the system. I think because, again, nationally, there has been some situations to make sure we, as a city, are addressing those issues. And the one thing I really appreciate is to know about the case that has been solved. So your PowerPoint mentioned about 100 cases that has been solved or that has been utilized with that system. Again, we didn't have the system; those cases may not be resolved. So again, there's always pressure about, are we solving this crime? Are we solving that crime? We got to have tools in our toolkit to address those issues. And I believe in supporting the tools that we have in our community, so long as they're safe, so long as they're secure. But we got to have tools in our toolkit that we can make sure that everyone is safe. When things are going on downtown, we got to make sure, we don't want to take these away from you. We want to make sure you have the systems that you need to secure our community, that everyone feels safe. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for your service.
If I could just speak to that real quick, if it's okay. I just want to make the designation. Yes, we have 100 significant cases that I mentioned in there that were cleared. But I think we need to be careful defining what successes are, because successes aren't always just clear cases. Sometimes it's an elimination of someone who might have been considered a suspect and now they've been eliminated from that because we were able to go into the system and use that. Or maybe we were able to locate a missing child and we find out that it wasn't criminal. So success is defined in so many different ways, especially when we're talking about the system. So
to me, those are successes.
Yes, sir.
Because you could eliminate it would save man hours. It would save you time. It would just use the technology to make sure that will save your hours of time. But we can eliminate this. That's a success. That saves you hours, saves you time. Now we can focus on this. And also, if you got a missing child, you got to focus on. You need to do things fast and quick. You have a time span of when you can find that child, for example, or a missing adult. I've seen this with Alzheimer's. I seen a situation the other day where a person with Alzheimer's had left the house and was missing. So those kind of things is a rapid amount of time that you need to solve those areas for the person gets killed or get lost or fall into a river or whatever the case may be. So we got to utilize all the tools we have to make sure people are safe. But thank you, appreciate it.
Mr. Missions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I want to thank you guys for the presentation. There was a lot of information in here, new information that I'd not seen before, and that was helpful. And you actually just dialed in on something specific with what you said about the clear cases, because one of the questions that I had was, how is that with convictions? How many convictions? Do we know how many convictions we've gotten off of?
Well, once again, it's a tool that supports the case as an overall, right?
Sure.
The cameras aren't testifying in court. The officers still have to put the case together. The officers and detectives still have to present all of the information. Flock has just been used to confirm or corroborate evidence that's already there. So that's how we look at it. Flock isn't going to make or break an entire case. Can it greatly shorten the amount of time it takes us to develop an investigated lead? Absolutely. Can it shorten the amount of time it takes us to locate a suspect and make an arrest? Absolutely. So
I'd like to have an answer to that question. I know you probably don't have it today, but I'd like to know how many instances in which Flock data has been used in a case has actually led to a case where there was a conviction.
I think the plan was for that to be part of the potential review process
Sure.
as well through the vendor.
Sure, but that's just one question. But
sure.
The next question I have for you is there was one thing you left out.
What's that?
Can you walk me through what happens when you guys have a hot list alert?
Sure. So a hot list alert, first of all, it's already been entered by a law enforcement officer. So whether it was entered by a state police or whether it was entered by one of our detectives, I'm going to give you a perfect example. We had a stalking case, and we had not located the suspect yet. We had outstanding warrants for the suspect. We knew where the victim lived. An officer was able to take that information several days at the most. I don't know the time frame exactly. The officer was actually working at the time. The hot list alert goes out, and that suspect had actually passed an intersection with a flock camera very close to where the victim lived. The officer was able to automatically go to that area, search the area, was able to locate the vehicle as well as the suspect to make the arrest for the stalking case.
Excellent. So thank you for sharing that. And
yes.
How's that alert come across? Is it on a cell phone? Is it on your mobile terminals? I'm just the whole piece. I'm just curious about
Both.
the whole thing.
It would send it through either the cloud-based system if you're logged into that, or we do have the app on the phone, and it can actually do a text message push.
Okay.
But then you have to log into the system, take a look at it, then we have to verify the alert.
So are officers logged in 24/7, 365 if they don't log out, or if they don't get logged out by Flock? So I guess if you got a duty cell phone, right?
The CJIS requirements have an automatic requirement for if you're in activity for X amount of time,
Sure.
that it would log you out of the system. You can still receive alerts.
So you could have alerts coming when you're off duty.
Yes.
And that's pretty routine and normal that happens, I would imagine, when the hot list alerts come out. So when a hot list alert comes out, does it notify everybody or people close to where the...
Only people who want to receive the alerts. You can
Okay.
actually turn them off. You can put it in a shift mode, which means I don't want to, hear them in the middle of the night. So it just depends on what you've authorized as far as the notifications are through your app.
So that takes me to my next question. Last summer, we had a situation with Nia Williams. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with that. And from what I've read in all the court filings, it looks like Flock had nothing to do with the Nia Williams incident based on what was testified and provided by the city, and then also the information that she argued, and it looks like that was settled. But it was very clear that the license plate on her vehicle ended up triggering something that made it look like she was driving a stolen vehicle. The data was entered wrong from the DMV database, if I've got that correct. And we had a situation where we had wrong data, false data in a DMV database about a stolen vehicle, about a license plate number. So my question, and then she was pulled out of her car and went viral on social media in front of her 3 kids. I thought that I watched the video. I just reviewed it again recently in preparing for this. Couldn't be more proud of what our officers did, what she did as a citizen to try to, do everything. But that's clearly a traumatizing situation.
Sure.
Right? And so my question is, if the data is wrong in a DMV database, like it looks like was the situation in the Nia Williams situation, right? Could that generate a hot list alert that would have us going after, because I'd imagine stolen vehicles are probably part of what's in a hot list alert. Is that right?
Correct.
Could wrong data in a DMV database have flagged a license plate or similar thing happen, and then officers are notified through a push notification, through a hot list notification, and then they are closing in on somebody who's not, a similar situation like that?
Sure,
Could it cause that?
That situation could have happened with or without Flock. If someone had done a vehicle stop
Sure.
and then had run the registration and it came back as a stolen vehicle, the officer would have reacted in the same.
Absolutely. So I think the question that I have, or the thing that I wanted to illustrate with this, is that Flock could have alerted whoever's open to the alerts that was a stolen vehicle, because the database is feeding it in the same way if it's coming from DMV as a stolen vehicle. And it could have been a similar situation. Flock could support something like that happening, just like ALPR on the cars, which I think is different than the Flock technology. Is that right? That's coming through because we also have the plate readers on the patrol vehicles as well. Is that correct?
It's a different vendor.
Yeah, different vendor. So, do all our patrol vehicles have plate readers on them, automatic plate readers?
I don't know all.
There's 65.
65?
Yes.
Okay.
So most.
So we've got 65 ALPR devices, I guess, on patrol vehicles is probably an accurate way to say that. All right. Thank you for that. So obviously a consultant, that's new spending. I don't think that we need to do that. We don't need to spend any money on a consultant to make this decision. City Council put us in this position by approving a license agreement on November 28th, 2023. City Council can reverse this decision by getting out of the license agreement. Mr. Friedman told us back in October of 2023 that it was relatively easy, short notice. We can terminate that license agreement. And when I look at the other localities in Virginia that have done something with Flock, it was the governing bodies. That's who made the decisions. And I think the decision does rest with us. I don't think we need to be relying on consultants or staff recommendations for that. The big concern that I have is when we talk about, well, let me ask one more question. How would you access, if you were going to use, sometimes you guys do investigations that go outside the confines of the city of Lynchburg, is that right?
Sure.
So you might be tracking somebody's travel across the Commonwealth or even across the state lines, right? Is that in some rare circumstances, or maybe
Sure, hypothetically.
hypothetically?
Sure,
How would you access EasyPass data?
I would have to, anything like that where we needed to find out information from another third party would usually be done with a search warrant.
Okay.
What's different is we own the data in Flock.
Sure.
We own our own data and we consent to the search of our own data. So,
But who is hosting that data?
we own it.
Own it.
Correct.
I understand that. But who hosts it? Does Flock have access to the data?
No.
Not even for technical access or anything like that?
Part of the contract, and Mr. Friedman may speak to that, actually allows for that, but I'd have to look at the particular language.
The state code that I provided to you all previously, I also think it speaks to that as well. I think it's as it relates to doing repairs to the hardware or the system, but it's not something where Flock just goes and digs around.
And I believe
our
it has to be at
systems.
the agency's request even then.
But sure, right? Missouri v. Biden, right? Big tech companies in this country, it's the nature of the business. They allowed a backdoor into Meta and started a censorship industrial complex in 2020. And they silenced the voices of American citizens because the infrastructure was there. Flock has access to the data. I don't necessarily have a problem with ALPR. What I have a problem with is us not having control of every aspect of it. And I'm not comfortable or trustworthy of a company whose CEO has likened United States citizens who want to protect their privacy and constitutional rights as terrorists. I don't think a single Lynchburg taxpayer penny should be spent with a company that has a leader, a CEO with those values. I don't think it's appropriate. No, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor,
We have another
you
meeting,
are
Mr.
silencing
Commissioner.
me just like the big tech industrial
I
complex.
guess I'm big tech
All right.
industrial complex,
And-
but we got another meeting to
Mr.
go
Mayor,
to.
you voted for this, Mr. Mayor. You built this system. You and former
It's
Mayor
time to
Reed
adjourn.
built this system. It's in this city because of you.
No roll call today. We got another meeting we got to get to.
Again, silencing elected officials.